Let's see, I got to bring this over just a little bit here, it looks like.
Yep.
That about right?
Yeah, and shut that kitchen light up.
Okay. Kitchen light off.
There we go. See if that.
Okay. Sound check. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Been to so many concerts. You know, when we were doing the kettle corn.
Yeah.
And you know, you're there before the concert starts, so you hear all this testing. This, yeah. Hi, Lars. How's it going?
Hey, Gold Panner.
Okay, looks like we're live. Let's see if I can get that a little better.
That won't hurt.
Yeah, that works better. Okay. Oh, so
hey, Jeff.
The temperature is a sweltering 26 degrees Fahrenheit, which has actually been quite warm compared to what it was last week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Much better weather.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Chris. They said they have certain sounds they make to check, you know, certain things. I mean, it gets really tedious because they probably check like 27,000 microphones and 27,000 speaker combinations. And yeah. Heidi Ho Heidi Ho Bear.
Heidi Ho Neighbor.
Neighbor? Okay, there you go. See, I think in Spanish. Hello, Norberto. Let's see, Jeff. And there's Jaron again.
Oh, we're getting a few of you here.
Yeah. The usual crowd of miscreants and malefactors. Oh. Well, I've been fairly busy and productive this week, so that's good. I don't think I've seen you before, Norberto. Is this your first live stream or not? What part of Arizona are you from? Oh.
Arizona sucks rocks.
Nothing personal. She just we just moved from there, and she doesn't.
Yeah, enough.
Yeah. One nice thing, you don't have to worry too much about slipping when you're walking.
Oh no,
this
frozen precipitation's not good.
I hit the ground the other day. Ouch. But I got something. Safford, huh? Okay. Norberto, do you ever go to the Graham County Fair and see Wild West kettle corn over there by the entrance? That's us.
That used to be us.
I got these.
Yeah,
aren't they cute?
Yeah, boot cleats.
Yeah, crampons. Yeah. Haven't used them too much. I just got them today, so I put them on to walk out there, change the spark plugs, and go across the street. Seem to be working pretty good. These are not the toughest crampons. I wouldn't use these if I had to go climbing on glaciers or something.
No,
but for just they did give good grip.
Oh yeah, you got good teeth on those.
Yeah, these worked pretty good. Let's see, what do they look like?
Yeah.
That looks pretty bad. Oh, yeah. That's right, little one. Still got to cut my hair sometime.
Already.
Yeah, Norberto, thank you. Yeah, that was us. We did it for quite a number of years. And we always had fun over there. Although there was, I think I started something. There was one year we were over there, and the weather turned bad about 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and it was raining, and the wind came up, and I mean, it busted a bunch of tents bad, and it was just pouring down rain. In our tent there, yeah. we had a drainage ditch right at the back of the tent. And I actually had a 5-gallon jug of oil just pick up and start floating off the back of the tent there. It was pretty fun. Now, when I set up a tent, though, I set it up thoroughly. So while everyone else was watching their tents get crumbled, blown over, and stuff like that, I simply sat there.
The
and
flood in the
watched.
motel room was really
I'm
something.
getting to that little one. And
Oh, it was more interesting than the tent.
so I sent the employees home, and we get a motel room down there. What is it? Was it Budget Inn there?
I think it's budget in.
I think it was Budget Inn down there on Main Street. You know, about I don't know, 3/4 of a mile from the Walmart Plaza thing. And so after the rain stopped and everything and it calmed down, I helped some people clean up the mess, and somebody had an epileptic seizure, so we had to get the paramedics, take care of that guy and everything. And then when it was all done, I just headed back to the motel, and shortly after I got back to the motel, it just started pounding again. And so the Resort Dog, they couldn't collapse under the water because it was blowing so hard they couldn't get that much on them. And anyhow, so we're just hearing this pounding on the roof in the motel. And I look outside, and it's because it's just coming down hail like a son of a gun. And it was hail and rain. And then, I don't know, what, about 10, 15 minutes later, little one?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Eva goes, "There's water coming under the door." And I look over there, and sure enough, there's water coming under the door. I'm like, wow, it's really filling up in the parking lot there. So I go over to the door with a towel, figuring, I'll keep it out of the room. Then I realized it was coming in that high above the bottom of the door along the jamb. And I was like, okay, towel's not going to handle this.
And through the outlets, by the way, on the wall, about a foot up.
No, that was later. And so it started coming up and up. And I don't think it was 12 inches. I think it got about 10 inches deep in the motel room. And so I was picking everything up, putting it on the spare bed and this, that, and the other. Eva started getting stressed when, as she said, it was coming out of the electrical outlet. But I tell you what, the worst part, as far as I was concerned, was the fact that the darn water, it had been hailing too. By the way, it was about 4 inches of precipitation came down in 30 minutes. And we were on the downhill side of the pediment coming off of the mountains there. And there's all this water coming through the door was ice water because it was melting that hail. And so I'm wading around in the middle of a motel room in ice water.
In his stocking feet.
Did I have stockings? I thought I just had bare feet.
Well, you stripped the stockings real fast, but
Yeah.
you started with stockings and then discovered this was a bad idea.
Lars apparently is approving of your idea to cut it real short.
Well, I want
True.
to give him a military haircut, but since he refuses to part his hair in a part that is later than 1950s,
Hello, Sin. I don't think I've seen you before. Where are you from? This is a little unusual just because I criticized her for not getting my hair cut on time.
This is his punishment for not getting his haircut on time.
Saskatoon, huh? It's probably colder up there than it is here. I'm at 26 Fahrenheit right now. What are you at? But anyhow, so yep, I've had a few adventures over there in Safford, Arizona. So let's see, we got 15 people.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Probably a pretty good selection of the first people here. 17. Basically, just waiting for a few people to show up. Telling
To be continued.
some Opal around Safford.
Really?
Oh no, don't. Well, she still thinks Arizona sucks rock, so not a problem. Minus 15C.
I know there's plenty of
That's
agate
cold and
around
nice.
Safford, and there's some fire opal on the Safford, New Mexico border. There's a big rock hounding site there.
Yeah. Hello, Krugels.
Wayne.
Really, Chris? Well, very good. Maybe Sin can help us some. Anyhow. Yeah, they had some fire agate over by Yuma, Arizona too, but not sure. So this week, as you saw in the video, I've been working on the spot test. Yeah, I'd appreciate your help, Sin. I presume you know how to get a hold of Chris if you're not commenting. It seems like you guys have been talking back and forth a little bit. So we might be able to get the spot test done a little bit quicker too. The spot test itself is not working the way I would like in terms of the test paper itself is not simply precipitating the gold. Hey, David. And that would be the ideal situation. I tried doing what I could to get it just acid enough, but apparently as soon as I got it acid enough to do anything, it would precipitate the gold. And there was no situation that I could achieve either with sulfuric. Sulfuric didn't seem to do much at all. Okay. Nitric would precipitate gold. Hydrochloric, hi Terry, would precipitate more, a little bit more gold. And the sulfuric wouldn't precipitate any that I could see. But that's not what I would like to do. I'd like to have something where it actually goes onto a test paper and reacts on the test paper. And I'm also not sure. Eva brought up a really good point, and Chris probably knows, and I imagine Sin would. When you make one of these test papers, how do you make it so that the color doesn't bleed when you add solution? You know, like you take a pH test paper and you stick it in solution, it's all the same color. It's not like dripping color off of it or anything. And I'm wondering how you get that indicator to stick to the paper like that. I have no idea, Chris. Will silver chloride redissolve in Aqua Regia? If it will, then I don't believe it was silver, because when I added enough nitric again, it would redissolve, you know, with plenty of hydrochloric in it also. So when I got to a ratio more approximating that of dilute Aqua Regia, the precipitate would redissolve. And so that's the question. Will silver chloride dissolve in Aqua Regia? Especially not really intense Aqua Regia. You know, like about I'm guessing 5 to 1, 10 to 1. Okay, that might be what's happening. It did not look like the amount of precipitant I recall from years past when I was using the Kodak test paper and an Aqua Regia digestion, followed by an MIBK extraction and then a re-extraction by evaporating the MIBK over dilute Aqua Regia. Actually, I wasn't actually using Aqua Regia. I was using what they call what I was told is called chloronitric acid, which is about 1 part Aqua Regia, 2 parts water. It's a lot more stable. It doesn't give off near as many fumes and things like that. It's just a lot easier to deal with. And then I would evaporate the MIBK over, I think as I recall, it was 10% chloronitric acid. So I take the chloronitric and dilute it, 9-to-1 with water. And that would give me something that would react with the test paper easily. And as the acid evaporated, it would not bleach out the spot. I'm sure there is Resort Dog. I don't know for sure. If it had a lot of, pretty high intensity, you could essentially do like a fire assay, I'm sure, or use litharge and some other stuff. Chris is asking, some more precise questions. Yeah, you could do that too. You could dissolve it in acid, dissolve the precious metal in acid and then precipitate it. That should work just fine. Yeah. So I say I ordered some MIBK, should be here in about a week. So I'll be doing some more tests with that. And the MIBK should be pretty darn specific for the gold ion. And so that's what I'm looking to do to get more specificity. And Chris, did you ever get any idea whether the test paper I'm using is the same as the Kodak paper I used to use? That's that's one thing we're trying to figure out, because the test paper I used to use is apparently not available anymore. Hi, Paul. And so I'm not even sure that this test paper will do the same thing. And I'm also curious about maybe making our own test paper. I did try making a simple test paper with stannous chloride. I'm not sure exactly what the solution concentration was. I'm hoping if it's similar, it should work similar, and I should be able to make things happen with it. But I just took some of the stannous chloride solution like you told me to make, Chris, and put it on some test paper, dried it out, and then tried a spot test, both with acidified solution and with straight leach solution. And neither one did it. What test paper? Okay. We might find someone who knows something. Let me go ahead and get some show and tell here. Okay. This is the test paper, and it's used for photographic fixer solution. And this is made by, let me get my glasses on. Mashere Nigel. And it fulfills the same purpose as the test paper I was using before, but I do not know if it does it in the same way. Hey, Max, how's it going? Haven't heard from you for a while. I may very well try and take you up on that furnace offer. It'd be fun to head on over there and see coastal Washington again if it's not on fire or something. Don't have to dodge Antifa to get there. And could be, Paul. As I was just playing with something I had. If you got a better idea, I would be happy to hear it. But the Max has a couple furnaces, and he's offered me to come on over and maybe pick one up or buy one. And then I could come back through the Liberty mine there and check that out. And I was also thinking of going out to the Olympic Peninsula. If we did it in late spring, it wouldn't be too bad. He's on the phone right now, John, and I'm not going after silver. It's just that the silver test paper would also precipitate gold out of solution. And as such, it was very useful in the past using a system I had in the past. Now I'm trying to basically recreate what I was doing in the past, but I don't have the exact same paper, so I'm not sure. I say Jim's outside talking on the phone for some reason. So I'm working on that. Probably not much this week. Tomorrow I take Eva to Missoula for a doctor's appointment, and the weather should be good, so that's good. Okay, we will definitely stay in touch, Max. Max was very hospitable when my truck broke down on a trip over there. He towed it. He towed my trailer, gosh, I don't know, probably about 100-mile each way. Oh, Jim forgot the door automatically locks.
Yeah, slid shut.
Yep. And so he actually, went 100 miles, snatched my trailer and towed it back to Bishop. And then he and his wife were very hospitable while we were there. We had a good time while they got the transmission fixed in the truck. And so that was, they were very, very nice people, had a great time. I forget what your buddy's name was, Max, but he was a really nice guy too. I had a good time there. Yeah, Chris, that's why I'm thinking if we just acidify it and extract it into the MIBK, we can eliminate a bunch of those 11 secret herbs and spices. That's my idea. But anyhow, we'll be working on that probably next week. This week, I've got the exhaust hood completed. I got the furnace installed and running. I did one test so far, and I got a little bead about 0.06 grams. I should have gotten 0.11 grams, but it does look yellow as opposed to the previous bead, which was more silver in color. And so I say it's ready for a lot of testing. Tomorrow's taken up getting Eva to Missoula and back. Luckily, weather's good. And then Wednesday, I should be doing a lot of testing. I got different flux formulas I can make. I've got different heat profiles I can do. And Lars, I like the kiln. We got the programmable one. For those who are curious, the outside of that tabletop kiln gets to where it can burn you, but it's not really hot on the outside. And putting it under that exhaust hood, if I put my hand over the top of it, it's a pleasantly warm temperature. It's not anything bad. And so it seems to be working really well. Got the burn-in done, got one test run. The one thing I really don't like about this particular furnace is the instructions suck. I mean, I called up the guy who sells them, and I had a question. How do you run it in manual? Answer: you can't. You have to have a program. It can be a very simple program, like go from 0 to 1800 degrees and hold there for a period of time, and then at the end of that, turn off. It can be a pretty simple program, but it has to be a program. And it's yeah, I'm going to be doing some cupelling and stuff too, and I'm going to try adding lead. If I can't figure out something that works real well with what I've got on hand, I may get some litharge and make an actual like assay flux, and that should do a really good job. If we're losing gold now, that should kind of eliminate that. We'll see what happens, but got a lot of things to do there, and I've got some cupels, so I can do some cupelling. Lots and lots and lots of fun. I'll be burning a lot of gas in the generator, and it will it's going to be fairly warm this week. I mean, the days are mostly going to be above freezing.
Yeah, the whole week.
Yeah. The road out to the ranch is kind of fun right now, but
Rutted up and ice.
Yeah. And not rutted.
Compacted.
Yep. Compacted snow into ice. Yeah. But the Bago is doing good. It's got enough weight, and those tires are doing good. You put it in 4-wheel drive, and it goes. I screwed up the other day. I got off the pavement, pull over by the mailboxes, locked the hubs, got back, and forgot to put it in 4-wheel drive.
Oh, that would do it.
So I'm driving along,
pushing a heavy front end.
Everything was doing fine. I get to the ranch, open the gate, try and go through, and it's like, what the hell? Back up, go through. Okay, fine. Come around, and then now the snow's not packed, right?
Right.
Tire spinning. What the hell? And then I realized, well, it helps if you put it in 4-wheel drive. So anyhow, this week it's going to be mostly smelting experiments, and I've got that book on assaying that Chris recommended, and it's going to have a lot of information that may very well definitely apply. Things like how do you thin the flux and this and that.
Right.
And I'm Lars, if you read the instructions, you'll notice it said what you were supposed to do, but not how to push the buttons to make it happen. That's okay. I'm making a set of instructions for anyone else out at the ranch that needs to use it. When I'm done and I've debugged it, made sure it's thorough and understandable and stuff, guess what? The guy who sells the damn furnaces wants a copy of it so he can duplicate it and give them with the furnaces, because the people who make the furnaces
don't have one.
Have some pretty lousy instructions. Trust me. Eva was looking at him going, what? I don't think the stannous chloride is the key to this one. Well, how old is it, Max? Gladiators are kind of old, aren't they?
Be the brand new one.
Yeah, I don't know. Nah, Kodak, it was just snow. Once you get through the snow, it's pretty firm. I mean, I imagine the ground is still frozen beneath the snow.
Oh yeah, well,
would be my guess. It was like, below zero for
we don't get a lot
week
of
or
frost
two,
except where you drive.
Yeah. And
excuse me.
Yeah, Paul. It doesn't seem to be reacting at all with stannous chloride. 2021. Yeah, that's going to take a while to pay off. Absolutely. Yeah, it was just once I put it in 4-wheel drive, no problem. Of course, I've been out there before, like the day before or something. It's like, what? Why is it running? I'm having trouble. Yeah. You forget these little things. Kind of like last week when you forget to select the time for the live stream and everyone's going, hey, Keith, we're waiting.
Oh, well.
So
they got over it.
I'll be doing a lot of smelting this week. And another thing, I did, Walt. Unfortunately, I knocked it over, so I didn't get the video that I was looking for, which was when I set off the Sierra Blaster. It was sitting up there, and I'd accidentally knocked it over and didn't realize it until after I'd done the blast. But yeah, it was a perfect device to use for that. Right now, I'm not really doing anything in the field, and I won't be for several months. That's where the GoPro will come in handy.
Yeah, you'll like it.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
mine.
And yeah, and I'm also having fun. When I was going around town, I was in 2-wheel drive, and I went over to Lowe's to get that, the glass brick,
Yeah.
Not brick,
Tile. Yeah.
And coming back onto whatever that road is right there, it was all just slush, and you know how the traffic is right there. So I came piling up on there. Hey, Tom, I'm in the middle of a live stream. Is it an emergency? Okay. Bye-bye.
Don't have to text me.
No, it's not. But anyhow, so it was just all slush there.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm going to have to make a little thing here. So I put a little gas into it, coming up, and it's like, starts, drifting a little. It's like perfect, and just counter steer, back off a little. Then handled fine, It was fine. Oh, well, thank you, Walt. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be using it a lot this spring, spring and summer. It'll work really well when we're down in the hole mining and stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You'll like it.
I really appreciate that thing. That was a very nice set you sent me. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And that brings up something else too. Kodak. Thank you. Didn't need to, but John there, when I sent him the what do you call it? The guts of that cell phone.
Yeah.
I figured I'd just put it in an envelope and first class it.
Yeah.
Get to the post office and he goes, "No, that's a package, not an envelope." He goes, "This thing." And so I had to send it as a package. And John sent me back the postage. So thank you, John. Wasn't needed, but yeah. So because it should have just taken 2 stamps. It wasn't heavy at all.
Right. Yeah,
I forget what it was. But
freight has gotten insane.
Less than 2 ounces. Oh, yeah. Eva's going to have some stuff on the the tinfoil hat report too. Your what? It was an old smartphone Eva had that, gave up the ghost. And Kodak there was, he does electronic stuff. And he said, "Yeah, can I have the guts?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem." I figured, yeah, a couple stamps, no biggie. Well, it cost a little bit more than that, but what the hell? I already said yeah. It did not have the battery, Chris. I took that out because I know that's hazmat. Actually, the battery's still sitting in the barbecue outside because I don't want it in the apartment either. That way, if it were to catch fire, it's not going to cause a problem.
Well, it can go air if you declare it, so they put it on the right spot on the plane.
Yeah.
So I just sent a computer to a friend of mine in Colorado that left his stuff here one night, flying out quick.
Oh my goodness.
So he was in a tailspin of, I forgot my computer.
That's not important. Just your whole life.
Yeah,
is
right.
on it.
Everything that he does is on it. So.
Yeah. So anyhow, got that. And Coulter Young from Mining Magnets sent me some placer concentrates that had the gold taken out with a RP4 table.
Yeah.
And he was of the opinion that there was probably still significant gold left in it, maybe some platinum group and stuff. So I took a 500-gram sample and bottle rolled it in the Eco Gold X and took that to the lab. Got the results back today. And in a word, I can summarize the results. Crap. Okay. Yeah, it was on most of the platinum group, it was below detection limits. There was one of them, forget what it was, that was actually at 0.004 parts per million, because the detection limits on the platinum group was like 0.002, and most of them were below that. And it had, I think it was 0.4 parts per million gold. It translated, might have been 0.8, but it was like 0.023 ounces per ton.
Yeah.
So they're getting pretty good recovery out of that. There's not much left in it.
Not worth dealing with.
Not worth dealing with.
No.
And Coulter said, thank you very much. Now I can just forget about it. And
Yep.
that is an important skill if you're going to be a gold miner and be successful. When the results come back crap and you think about it, you say, well, is there any way that if you can't come up with a really good reason why you might want to double check them, walk the heck away. Very, very important skill.
Well, another one's not spending $10 to recover $1 worth of gold.
That's another one.
I mean, you got to find
Hi,
that
Pushker.
line, you know, depending on the size of the operation, and that you have to find that line of, is it worth buying a $20,000 concentrator and putting in off the side of the sluice box? You know, if you're not going to recover enough gold to justify the equipment, the answer is no. You know, so you have to figure that out, though.
Yep, and that's what. Thank you, Pushker. I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you too. And the people who sell equipment, by and large, are not enthusiastic about discouraging you about buying their equipment. Now, I'm sure there's a reason for this. It's probably something very subtle, but you know, if you say, hey, I want to buy this machine, they don't ask you, is it going to do you any good?
Right.
And so that's, yeah, exactly, Kodak.
Probably, John.
Yeah, I was doing it just because, you know, I thought it would be like a little gift sort of thing. But yeah, and I say it's one of those things you just got to think, you know. How can I test gold precipitate from cyanide solution? Are you precipitating it with zinc, Pushker? And if you are precipitating from a cyanide solution with zinc, after you filter it and dry it, I would suggest a standard fire assay. That should give you a darn good idea. Okay, yeah. Just tell the assayer, assuming that you have an assay lab or whatever, that exactly what it is, because he'll use a different technique. If you don't have a lab or like that, you can probably make a flux that'll work pretty well. I am not sure exactly what that flux would be, but I'll bet you Chris Georgie is going to show up in just a minute
with the right answer
and give us a good idea of exactly what kind of a flux you would want to put on zinc precipitates from cyanide solution to get the gold out of it. Should be pretty simple. And then you would just put it in a furnace, you know, put the precipitates and the flux in a crucible and smelt it down. I'm pretty sure I know it's fairly well understood because that's how they used to do it about a century or more ago. But it's not something that we do very much nowadays because zinc precipitation is not the most efficient way of recovering the gold from the solution. It works. It's very simple.
He does now, Chris.
Okay, Pushker, when Eva comes out to do the tinfoil hat report, if you remind me, I'll look it up and see.
Put it on there.
And see what the deal is, and then let you know, okay? Because, yeah, I say it should be a fairly simple procedure. And this book on fire assaying, it's not the simplest book. Yeah, and but the guy who wrote it really knows his stuff, and there's a lot of information in it here. So it's a little difficult for me to go through. It missed me. You remember the train and the plane yesterday? Well, guess what?
It's about that close.
I feel like the cops. It missed me. And that's good enough. That idiot that was taking the photographs from up the road there It's like there's a train coming, there's an object on the track, a high-speed train coming, an object on the tracks, and you're on the other side of the impact zone. Get behind a car, you blinking idiot. Luckily, the pieces went past him on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris just gave you the details there. There's another one. I just saw it down in the Beluga. Recovery and extraction of the recovery and extraction of the recovery and refining of the precious metals by C.W. Ammen, Ammen.
That's a good one too.
And that one it's a lot more practical for the average person than this one. Okay. I say this one is specifically about fire assaying. It's very detailed, goes into a lot of the theory, but it's really got a tremendous amount of information. Yep. Either that or run perpendicular to the line of the train.
The debris field.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
to be in the debris field.
Yes, exactly. But say I haven't read this one yet. I'm that far through it. But the one by C.W. Ammen
It's more
it's
practical.
more practical.
Yeah,
it's also a lot more expensive now.
Yeah, it's gotten to be really
although I don't
expensive.
know. Did they have it on the Frontier website? I'm wondering.
I don't know. Legend has this one, right?
No, precipitated gold does not dissolve in any acid. It will dissolve in Aqua Regia. What Chris was talking about was if you select the proper acid, you can dissolve the zinc without dissolving the gold. Then when you filter it again, you've got a very clean gold concentrate. It doesn't have a whole lot else in it. Now, remember, you're also going to be precipitating any silver in solution. If you have a lot of silver in solution, you may want to take that into account when it comes to, that's correct, Argonaut. Not sure why Pushkar is precipitating with zinc, presumably because it's very simple. But that's exactly the question that we're addressing here. And so by using the proper acids and sequences, for example, it's my belief, check me if I'm wrong, Chris, if you take that precipitate, dissolve it in nitric acid, then you're going to dissolve the zinc and the silver and almost everything else except the gold.
Correct.
Then you filter out the gold and rinse it with distilled water, and then you can just dry it and flux it and smelt it. But the nitric acid, you then add salt to, and that will precipitate the silver as silver chloride. And then you can, collect that, filter it, and smelt it down, and you'll have pretty pure silver and pretty pure gold. And as Chris Georgi notes, to get good recovery using the zinc, you need to deoxygenate the solution first. The reason is because oxygen is critical to the reaction where the cyanide dissolves the gold. If there's no oxygen, the cyanide doesn't do a darn thing. Once you've dissolved the gold, you don't want, after you precipitate it with the zinc, to have the cyanide continuing to work on it. So what you want to do is you want to basically incapacitate the cyanide temporarily while you add the zinc, filter out the precipitate. Then when you reoxygenate the solution, the cyanide is back to full strength and full activity. And because removing oxygen and adding oxygen is fairly simple, you basically put the solution through a vacuum chamber and get the oxygen out that way. And then once it's through the process, you just agitate it violently with air or bubble air through it. There's a lot of ways to get oxygen in water. Think your aquarium. It's a fairly simple process. So I say that's what Chris is talking about, Pushkar. For maximum efficiency, you want to deoxygenate first. It's my belief that if you use an excess of zinc, you can probably make it work, but you're going to use up more cyanide and you're going to use up more zinc, and life's going to be more difficult. But if you don't have an easy way of deoxygenating the solution, you may not have a whole lot of options on there. So anyhow, also, Chris, what level of vacuum do you need to pull to get reasonably good deoxygenation? Because you may just be able to use a high-speed blower if that'll get enough vacuum for you. I would think ICP. I'm not sure what the OES means. I'm sure Chris will tell me in just a second. I use ICP for my Eco Goldex solutions. And he acidifies them first in the lab for whatever reason the ICP needs to do that. That's his expertise, not mine. But first thing, he centrifuges it to get out most of the solids. I would agree with that, John. I saw some real high prices for that book.
Yeah, I've seen it, in the hundreds, but I've seen it for 80 somewhere also, John.
How many inches is that, Chris? Is this something you could, for example, take just an ordinary internal combustion engine and hook a vacuum line to your chamber and pull vacuum that way? Because I know an ordinary combustion engine will pull pretty high vacuum at idle.
Yeah, you can get 12 or something easy enough.
Yeah. So do you have any idea, Chris, on how much vacuum you need to pull? Okay, that's the assay technique there. Yeah, Pushkar, I know a lot of things, but I don't know as much about many things as I wish I did. The nice thing about this live stream is we have some really smart people that tune in too. We got,
it helps.
We've got Chris, and he's got a friend here today that's even more knowledgeable than him. I have not, Jeff, but there's a lot of people who are processing electronics and stuff that really doesn't apply to what I'm doing. What is ICP? Induction coupled plasma. It's a kind of analytical technique that gives you fairly high precision and sensitivity. I was just talking to the lab guy. He had a power supply go on him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just to get that fixed would be $25,000 was the first estimate.
Oh.
So they're pretty expensive
If you can
machines,
find the parts.
but they're quite versatile. And like I say, that stuff from Coulter, the detection limit, lower detection limit on the platinum group was 0.001 parts per million, or milligrams per liter. Yeah, jewelry. And say jewelry is not the same kind of thing I do, because with jewelry, electronics, etc., you know exactly what you've got. It's a fairly simple system. On the other hand, the other thing is I'm dealing with much lower concentrations, etc. And my solutions have to be pretty darn cheap and non-toxic, or else it creates a lot of problems. Because, like these guys who can take a bucket, say, and put stuff in the bucket and stir it. Okay, that'll get me about 1/100th of what I need to do in a day. So the volume is just really, a different situation. I have to be able to do it cheap, safe,
I like to do
and things like that. Hey, Sin. Okay, a little as 1 psi, huh? Okay, so Sin is apparently even a better chemist than Chris. First time I've seen him on here. It's great to have these people who are really smart on different subjects. It's much more expensive Paul, plus you're changing the chemistry of the solution. This is a solution you want to reverse the operation real quickly and cheaply. And so by pulling out the dissolved oxygen, it doesn't change anything else in the solution. That immobilizes the cyanide without neutralizing it. Once you've precipitated the gold and silver, then you just put oxygen back in the solution and you're good to go again for the next go round. I understand what you're saying, but I say when you're talking about tons per day, and well, I'm pretty sure you'd want to be spraying it into that vacuum too. I'd put a pretty good vacuum on it, and then probably a submersible pump inside the vacuum chamber so it can pressure it out. And as they put the chamber under a certain vacuum, you could use something as simple as like an old propane tank, and the water coming in, which because you're using a vacuum anyhow, you wouldn't even need to pump it, but then have it go through a nozzle and spray into a mist, and that would probably deoxygenate it pretty quickly. Yeah, John. I'm saying, if he's enjoying it, making good money, more power to him. Okay. It's
I'd
just,
like to do e-waste.
yeah, you would love tearing stuff apart.
I can find a good source.
Yeah, I say you can do these things pretty well. Walt Lashley, who used to run ASAT over there in Silver City, he did that. Also, he processed scrap and waste, and I think it was mainly jewelry back then. We didn't have the kind of electronics.
But now,
God, that was
the old phone systems, I guess,
Yeah.
had some gold in them.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris. And I say the concentrations of the precious metals are much lower. There's a lot of other minerals that are going to react with things and consume them. And then I need to be able to recycle the solution by the ton. And so it just creates a different situation, Paul, different economics, etc. If you were going to be refining jewelry that was, all at least 10 karat gold or more, it's a totally different process. You can use some pretty strong acids and precipitate it quite efficiently.
Well, you're dealing with a lot of metal.
Yeah, I say it's just a whole different situation when you're dealing with 500,000 parts per million versus 20 parts per million, which is what I'm dealing with. So yeah, it's that's the reason that different things. If you're trying to haul 40 tons, or what is it now? About 27 tons of cargo across the country, you use a semi truck. You wouldn't do that to go shopping, not if you had a choice. Okay, different tools for different jobs, and that's about the best I can explain it there. But anyhow, what I'm trying to do is create tools for kind of a middle of the road thing, where those small scale hard rock miner can run fairly efficiently. The big mines, they know how to make stuff very efficient. At the hard rock mine I was at in 1980, we were mining the rock for $1 a ton, open pit, drilling and blasting, and the processing of ore was either $5 a ton for the entire leaching process, or $6 a ton. I'm not sure if that included the one, but I think it was $6 a ton just for the milling, plus $1 a ton mining. Was that material or material in solution? Actually, that's the ore itself, Lincoln. It's running generally between 1/2 ounce and 1 ounce to the ton. The solution is going to be half that concentrated in general, or sorry, less than half that concentrate. If it dissolved 100% single pass, it would be about half that concentrate. We try and mix it 2-part solution, 1 part ore. That gives a very fast dissolution. Thank you, Paul. I say it. You know, another thing that by weight, Lincoln. Another thing that other people don't understand is it's not judgmental to say that process works fine over there, but this one is much better over here or whatever. There's just so many variables that, you know, for example, thiosulfate leaching is more expensive than cyanide leaching. You know, not many-fold, but I mean, it's more expensive. On the other hand, if you have carbon in your ore that will suck the gold out of cyanide solution, cyanide ain't going to work. So you have to go to thiosulfate. If you're in Montana, where cyanide has been banned, you have to go to thiosulfate. So you always have to look at the totality of circumstances and then decide what's the most efficient way to get it out under your circumstance. I was hoping initially we could just do a gravity separation. I've got a pretty good gravity separation. I can get down to 500 mesh.
Not on this ore.
But this stuff laughs at gravity separation. Ha ha! I laugh at your gravity separator. Oh, you missed a lot, Tricky.
Everything
That's okay.
we did up to here.
After Eva's report, we'll kind of recap everything. But the spot testing using stannous chloride didn't get any results. I'm ordered some more chemicals in to do a different kind of spot test a little bit, try and get it back to what I was doing before. And the smelting setup is now set up. I have an exhaust to it. I've got the little furnace already installed and tested, and getting ready there. And Coulter's sample that he sent me was crap. There, quick synopsis. Does heat cause any effects on the solution? I would presume that when you're trying to dissolve something, the warmer it is, the faster it's going to dissolve. That's pretty much a fairly universal thing, although you can have limits. You know, you get to certain temperatures and things can kind of change on you. But at any normal temperatures, like between freezing to, say, 175 Fahrenheit, or about 75 centigrade, I would guess, or Celsius. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be Celsius. You'd probably, the warmer it is, the better, you know? Exactly, John. Yeah, the more energy, the faster things happen. And so dissolution is one of those things that's usually an endothermic reaction. More heat will cause it to go faster. But that's why, you know, you heat water to dissolve more sugar in it.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Yep.
Ooh, I just thought.
Well,
homemade caramels. I love homemade caramels. Stirring it for, 45 minutes to an hour sucks, but that's okay. Yeah, pretty much Tricky. Nothing hugely definitive this week. Making progress on a couple of fronts. And of course, I'll be, posting videos and such. But this week's mainly smelting tests. Tomorrow, Eva goes to Missoula for a doctor's appointment, so that's out. And then should have a lot of smelting tests Wednesday. I will also be putting up a video on Coulter stuff. I was waiting to get results back. And I also want to reiterate something about the panning, that when I'm watching the videos, there's something about the panning that I have found doesn't work very well, that a lot of people do. Let me get a pan and I'll show you.
All right.
Okay. It'll be in the video too. And it may not be too bad if you're dealing with big gold, but you'll take a gold pan, typically one with riffles, and they'll shake it back and forth and pour a little bit over the lip and then stop and swish it. And then they'll shake it again and swish it and shake it again and swish it. And all the gold down here isn't really doing anything except maybe working towards the lip.
Right.
You know, when you're shaking it, bring it back to level and then do that. And what that does, any gold that's trying to migrate toward the lip will be forced all the way back to this crease and then have to try and race to the lip again when the lighter material is much faster. When Coulter was over here, yeah, it might work, Lincoln. When he was here, and I think we were doing the Black Poison, which, by the way, is some pretty tough stuff.
That was some interesting stuff.
I think it was the Black Poison, but somebody sent me some pay dirt to pan, and Coulter just happened to be here. So, you know, I was expecting him to come with this. I'll wait for him to show up. And when he panned it, he lost like a third of the gold.
Yeah.
And this was some fairly chunky gold too in place. I mean, this was not super microfine stuff. And when I panned it, I get well over 90% recovery.
Yep.
And the only real difference was that he was panning, swishing, panning, swishing, where I was panning, swishing, then bringing it all back, panning it, and doing it again.
Doing a pour off.
And when you do the tilt, if the gold's here, let's see, it's kind of hard to see. The gold's here, and you start tilting, the lighter material back here, let's try and get the lighter material back here can actually get to that lip faster than the gold can. But if you just keep doing this, the gold can keep working its way to the lip. Okay? So I would say that's the one thing I see a lot of gold panners do that I would not do.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm sure there's a certain size gold where that doesn't matter, but the size gold I deal with, it matters.
Right. The finer gold, it matters a lot.
Yeah. And he's done with a lot of big gold and fine gold.
Yeah. The big gold's easy. It's the fine stuff if you want to keep it.
Yeah. So think about that when you're panning. Don't just keep it basically at the same angle. Just do this. Bring it all the way back flat and bring that pile of stuff back onto the bottom and then restart the process. It's only a couple seconds. I can pan really fine gold pretty fast, you know, by doing it that way. So that's my tip of the week. Yeah, it's just, when I'm watching people panning and stuff, I'm always like, I wish I could get that and do a little tapping and stuff and just see what happens, you know? Okay, so anyhow, I think that brings us all up to date.
Yeah. I think it's Jim's turn to talk about something.
No, I'm doing okay.
He didn't do any mining this week, folks. Slacker again. Just because below zero, that's no excuse. Look at Jason, Flower Gold Wizards.
Yeah, he's out in the cold.
He's wading through, snow 2 feet deep. I mean, it looked only like 18 inches to me.
I know, but
and then busting out with his bare hands, picking up chunks of ice, throwing them. You know, my hands get sore just watching him.
just thinking about it.
Oh Lord, you know, he's one tough dude, you know. Okay, Paul, in that case, I suggest you look at my videos on how to pan microfine gold.
Fine gold, yeah, microfine panning, Paul.
And don't do the
and
other
play
ones.
with that idea a little bit because I think you'll like it.
Okay, Tricky, I'll leave it up to you and Chris for the moment on that one, as I'm busy doing some other stuff. But you see what I'm saying, Paul? And oh gosh, who is the guy with the foreign name? What was his name? I forgot. But anyhow, this is what I mean about we have so many different people. We can really look at a bunch of things. Yeah, Kodak, but we don't use mercury. I don't know, Paul. That guy, I think his hands are just, I mean, he says he's a mason, And so maybe that's it. Is he's just been doing it. Pushker, that's right, Gold Panner. Yeah, Pushker. This is what I mean. We've got so many different people looking at things from so many different angles. It's amazing to see what, a lot of ideas come out here. And oh, that's right. I need to look at this on when Eva's doing her report. Remind me that.
Yeah, that blue bowl works good too, Paul. So that's a good concept also.
But you got to
You still
classify it.
Yeah,
pretty
you
well.
still got to get down to what you're working with.
Would it work in your solution? No, Lincoln. My stuff, the gold is so fine, it will not settle in still water. Okay. I did a test where I just slurried it up, let it settle, poured off the top 1/3, and it had more gold in it per pound. Once I dried it, settled it and dried it, had more gold per pound than the ore did initially. Okay. My gold runs 80% smaller than 2000 mesh. Okay. And that's just beyond gravity. Okay. The blueberry bounce. I'm not sure.
The blue bowl, I think he was mentioning.
I don't know. He says, I was meaning blueberry bounce for a pan.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that is, Paul.
That's somebody's technique.
Cool, Tricky. And so anyhow, that's the really cool thing about this. This is not a bunch of people just talking for fun, although we do that. Witness last weekend, which went sideways. But we're actually trying to solve real world problems. People will, log on and say, here's my situation. How do you think we should deal with it? And then you get 6 different smart guys giving you their ideas.
It gets kind of interesting some nights.
Okay, Gold Panner knows what the blueberry bounce is.
Yeah, it was a technique. I knew it was a technique. But
I've never heard of it. We need to figure that one out. Let me put it on the list. Blueberry bounce. See if I can figure that one out.
Tom Massey had a.
And what was his name?
Blueberry John from Nome, Alaska, but it was. Look up Massey's videos, and it's in there somewhere.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gold Panner.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I mean, and this is what I mean. This is how I learn too. Chris has probably been the biggest single source of information.
He's been great.
And I mean, he's just been so free and helpful and stuff. He's really been invaluable, I just enjoy the heck out of the way everyone's going back and forth and trying to help each other out. That may be what I do. I don't know, Terry. But yeah, I'll have to take a look. Any good alternatives to roasting sulfides? Unless you can sell it direct to a refiner,
Yeah.
I don't know of any. The good thing about sulfides is if you have like copper sulfide, zinc sulfide, something like that with gold or silver in it, then you can quite often sell to a refiner and get a pretty good return without much hassle. But short of that, I'm not aware of any. Boiling the off solution, not mercury, a process caught in the solution. If you're just trying to deoxygenate the solution, boiling it would be energy inefficient. It would work, but it would be inefficient. Well, if you had, sulfide cons, Chris, and you want to oxidize them, how long would it take? Because I know mines have been trying this for a long time, and typically, even using autoclaves and stuff, they are looking at, like 90 days and things like that. I know they were looking at biooxidation in heaps. What they mean by that is basically bacteria eating up the sulfides.
But the time frame would be extensive, I would think.
Okay. For 30 pounds, I think your best bet's probably just roasting. Lars says about 30 pounds so far with known gold in it. And yeah, for that quantities, I would say the best bet is just roasting. Especially as I believe Lars already has a roaster. If I recall watching his videos.
Yeah, John, that would work on for small amounts at a time. I've done that.
Define surprisingly fast, Chris. Oh yeah, it stinks. That sulfur dioxide ain't good for you either.
There you go.
Okay. Gold panning techniques. The blueberry bounce. GPA archives. I don't see any links, Paul.
I don't think he can put any in.
I don't think it allows links in this.
Yeah. He could email it to him.
My email will work. If you could send it to that,
Paul. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hardrocku@outlook.com. If you could send it to that, that would be like really cool. If you didn't get it, let me know. And I'll redo that. Oh, and that reminds me too, something else I've been doing this week is shutting down my business in Tucson.
Oh,
I got a City of Tucson business license, a State of Arizona business license, a State of Arizona corporation, incorporation. So, shutting all these things down, the insurance, the payroll service, all this stuff. It just takes a lot of phone calls to get all these things done and such.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've got most of that done. And now the guy who called me a little bit ago, Tom, now we have to come up with a business agreement where basically he is going to lease purchase my equipment from me. We got to come up with a price, and we've agreed on a general price and terms, conditions, and all this other stuff. And then I can retitle the stuff in his name with, as a lien holder and stuff.
Sure. And
make that all happen. So it's just a lot of hassle. Luckily, it's the middle of winter, so we have time for hassles here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gold Panner. I appreciate it. Let me see if it showed up just to be sure while you're still on there. Should have had this up and running because we usually have at least one thing that somebody sends. Okay. Got it, Gold Panner. Thank you. Okay. This is Tricky Dicky. Tricky, the chimney pipe size we used was 4-inch square tubing. Okay. It'll work on a 6 or an 8-inch wide rotor. Not sure on the 4-inch wide rotor. For that, I had somewhere about 3.5 inches or something like that. But that one we made for Jimmy seemed to work pretty good, and that was a piece of 4-inch square tubing.
Yeah, you're throttling it slightly by coming down to your hose fitting and that up there.
Yeah.
Coming over the top anyway.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you all. And
yeah, thanks, Paul.
How wide is your rotor, Tricky? Say it. I don't know. I think it would basically just give you a finer grind if you had too big a one. I don't think it would stop it, although you might tend to plug it more.
Yeah.
And
if you had a problem, you could always go farther up for height if you're not getting a grind size fine enough.
Well, that to some extent, but I mean, once you get to a certain point,
right,
it's either going up or not. Yeah. And the higher you try and push that, the easier it is for it to plug, to stall in the column there. Also, I found that if you're careful on the moisture content, you can run at a slightly reduced capacity with essentially zero dust. Okay, there's no visible dust coming out of it. So that's another parameter there. So if you can tell me, Tricky, how wide is your rotor, roughly? Man, that'll give me a better idea on how big your exhaust should be.
Yeah.
Oh. And let's see, anything else? Not at this point, although my hernia is getting worse.
Oh, yeah.
But it may just be because I'm gaining a little weight, so it's pushing a little more visceral fat. Doesn't seem to be any problem. Trying to get it done. It's currently scheduled for March 1st. If that doesn't slip because stuff.
Because
yeah, I'm looking at some stuff right now.
Yeah, Eva will have lots of stuff in the report. Hey, Wolfman. I'm guessing because Tricky usually answers pretty quick. Of course, he's got a baby and all that other stuff too. So never know. Yeah. I don't know about pulling versus pushing. Sometimes it's just where, the mechanics of the whole situation decide that for you. I'm not sure what's more efficient, but I know a big pneumatic tanker truck can move 27 tons of quicklime, the size particle
up a huge column.
Yeah, 20 feet in about 30, 35 minutes.
Yeah.
With a big, very loud blower.
Yep.
On the PTO.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it's pretty interesting.
Yep. They're doing it. This is actually going to be robotic surgery. And they do it through just a couple little holes. So it should be quicker than that. Yes, I was in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, before we moved up to Montana. And it takes about 45 to 60. I'm 65. It's too late. Yeah. I talked to the surgeon just last week. About 2 weeks of really light duty. and then another, 2 to 4 weeks of light duty, and then gently got up to full speed, carefully. But yeah, they do a lot less slicing and dicing than they used to. How many weeks had it been since the gallbladder surgery when we went fishing and I fell down on the ice?
Couple of weeks.
I was thinking about 3 weeks or something. Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks, somewhere around there.
Nah.
Desert rat.
Yeah, desert rat. I am. I basically grew up in the desert. This is a totally different situation up here. It's interesting, but wow, it's different. Yeah. Let's say, all I know is that my impact mill does a pretty good job of a reasonably fine classification. What was it we're getting?
Very good job.
60%, or no, 95% 60 mesh minus, or something like that.
It was pretty impressive when we dialed it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it works pretty well. And the negative is not super productive. I mean, 200 pounds an hour is a lot better than a Cobra Crusher, but compared to that student Roth, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Student Roth's going to be unclassified.
Yeah.
So once we classify it, I'm not sure what's. When you figure the recycling, I'm not sure what's going to go into that. Yeah. But yeah, it does a pretty good job of giving you a nice fine grind in a single pass. I'm pretty pleased with the general design. Let's see. It's gonna be how many months till we can get out in the field again? Mid-May or something?
Yeah, it depends on the weather.
So we got.
But I would say the 1st of May is probably the soonest, but unless we get some really nice weather.
About another four months.
And I have been up in the mountains in April, and it was decent enough to get.
Hey, Gold Addict.
Hey, Gold Addicts.
So, anyhow, it's pretty much all this laboratory stuff and everything. Okay, that makes sense, Chris. And hey, Tricky, we had a question. What is the width of the rotor that you're using? Yeah, Jeff, that's what we're planning on. Unfortunately, that's still 4 months away. Oh, okay. Be that way. Mr. Person on the other end of the telephone earlier. Yeah, well, Tom, I'd love to see your butt up here last week. That would be hilarious. You and your little shaved head, and your nice dark Mexican tan turning blue.
He'd look like a skinny Smurf.
Yes, Tricky. The width of the plates on the rotor.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the question, because you asked me
about exhaust.
About the exhaust stack size, and that's an important thing. Yeah. Ball mills are okay for some things. They're not the most portable in the world. Yep. Oh, that northern Arizona is a totally different situation than southern Arizona. Like Flagstaff's is like 7,000 feet. And actually, even just north of Tucson, in 1 hour, the road's clear. You can drive from Tucson to a ski lift at almost 9,000 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the snow's always hard up there because it's never really cold. One time, it was, pretty funny because when it comes to skiing, I'm probably better than a rock, but not very much.
Rock.
And so I was coming down this run, and there was this patch of untouched powder where people, you know, 2 runs, and there's like these triangles. So my brother says powder skiing is cool. So I skied into it. You know what happens when you hit powder?
You dive.
Your skis just come to a stop. Thump. It took me 5 minutes to get, I don't know, 30, 40 feet out of that stupid powder. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
19 inches.
I'm thinking along the shaft length. So I think what you're saying, it's you're 19 and a half inches if you're looking at the side of it, looking at the end of the shaft, and then 6 inches inside it this way. If that's what you've got, a 4-inch column should work okay, although a 3.5 would work okay also. Okay. Actually, I have a very good brother. Okay. We get along well. And we like the same sort of things.
No comment.
And it's just one of those deals where it's a lot better than a lot of families out there, unfortunately. As I get older, I realize just how easy I had it as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, keep the tip showing above the snow for. Yeah, too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, because it's right there in front of the lodge.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost directly under the ski. I'm sure a lot of people were laughing their asses off. Okay, look at that doob over there. I mean, just flop, you know, flop. Finally, I think I took the skis off and walked out of the powder on the boots. Yeah, and then put the skis back on. Okay, Tricky. I'd go 3.5 to 4 inches. Okay. Then that's square tubing. Okay. That's what I would use. I wouldn't be worried about the 3.5. Let's say the 4 is going to tend to give you a little bit finer grind. Everything else being the same. But either one of those should work. And yeah, that was pretty. Of course, a lot of times I'm entertaining to watch.
Well, yeah.
Because I am a bit clumsy at times. Wow, I didn't hear anything from over there. Yeah. Really? Excellent, Goldstream.
Yeah, what did they tell you, Goldstream?
Take care, Paul. See you later.
Can't video.
John, I'm just amazed at what some people can do athletically, because I am essentially a klutz in many ways. You know.
Good one,
Like
David.
this
Who knew?
About 2-inch, Tricky. Say that keeps the airflow going pretty fast. So 2-inch inside diameter tube. I think we used a 2-inch nipple, didn't we?
I believe so.
Yeah.
We welded a cap in and then put a nipple onto it for the hose.
Yeah. 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 Let's say around 2-inch inside diameter, might be 2 1/4, somewhere like that. Good, Goldstream.
That's cool, Goldstream, because I've maintained that all along. Some of these drainages being remined would be a plus to the environment, actually.
Well, actually, it's not just my head, Jeff. Although I've done that more than once. Just the other day, you saw the back of the Beluga when you walked up here. See that ice there?
Yeah.
I was just walking around the back end.
Did this.
And I was walking real short steps and stuff.
Yeah.
But because it's got that side slope, put my feet on, and both of them just went downhill at the same time. Yeah.
I did that side deal one time with a 5-gallon pail and cracked my ribs. I was carrying a 5-gallon pail and I went sideways and I landed on the pail.
What was in the pail?
Water, just a bucket of water.
Better water than
Feeding
rocks.
watering animals or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, went sideways, but that pail caught me right under the rib cage.
Yeah. Yeah, 2-inch ID or a little bigger. That's what I do. I mean, whatever size valves and hose and stuff that work, you have. I mean, it's all metric over there. There's two kinds of countries in the world, Tricky. Those who use metric and those who have been to the moon.
Oh yeah, the communist measurements.
Well, that was actually the French.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, those were the brutal guillotine fanatics there. Man, I don't know what it is about a guillotine, but boy, they sure seem to enjoy that for some reason. Must be better than professional
That's right,
wrestling.
John. That's what I always kept telling the guys up where we were mining it the last is, next time somebody gets to mine it, they'll figure out what we didn't get.
Well, as you get new technologies,
yeah,
and stuff
get
like
better
that.
and better.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can also throttle it back any place. Say, like at the top of the column, you just put a valve where you can throttle it if you want. I was quite happy with the grind we were getting.
Yeah, no, we had really good success.
Yep. That was doing nice. Oh dear.
Yeah, and Keith and I actually played with like adding just a little moisture just to see how much it changed the grind size, changed the feed rate multiple times, feeding it heavier, pushing the mill, and then cutting the mill back to less with more air. We played, a lot with that, Tricky, and found a lot of different things that work for different ore. Exactly, Chris. You could, there's a lot of little things you can change that change the outcome quite a bit. So for, getting the right grind size in that, you can adjust your feed rate just a little bit, adjust the moisture a little bit in the ore. You don't want it too wet. You don't want to plug the mill. You want it to carry, but it did make a difference by dampening some of the ore and how good the grind was.
One thing you'll have to be careful of, Tricky, is make sure it doesn't get too wet.
Right.
Because you have so much rain over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm actually pretty happy with that design.
I think it's a great design.
I think my plan for the new method of resin extraction will be great if it works well.
You're getting there. You're almost there.
Yeah. And we got that's another thing I'm working on, but it's secret right now. May patent it. But if so, it'll make it even simpler, And
we've heard this may patented before.
Mm-hmm. Hey.
Well, the Rogue Wave, I never really got working the way I wanted it to work. So there's no sense trying to patent something you haven't come up with a final design yet.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing.
The impact mill, I don't think is patentable. What do you think, Chris? I don't think that design is sufficiently different to really be patentable. Do you?
Probably not.
That's why I'm just trying to basically license it.
A little independent.
I don't remember. What was it?
This, slightly damp actually helped us with the particle size when we were playing with it. Yeah, you could do a slide plate in it too.
If you're going to do a slide plate, I'd put it in at an angle. So, if here's your column, bring it out like this. That way anything falling back down
falls back
will
down.
fall off it. I wouldn't do a horizontal one. Okay. Nope, never seen that one, John.
Successful engineer. I haven't either, John.
That was my thought, Chris. I think anyone could either make a minor tweak or simply, do it and say, yeah, go ahead and sue me. What a lot of people don't realize, patenting doesn't give you the right to prevent anyone from doing it. What it does, it gives you the right to sue them and spend money in court to try and convince a judge that what they're doing is sufficiently egregious that it's worth the judge's time to actually enjoin them or give you any words. The guy who invented the weed eater, they broke his patent.
Oh yeah. No,
And it's like, excuse me, nobody had ever made a weed eater before.
I know. But
Nothing even close.
There's always a way around it.
Well, they use the principle is obvious to anyone with sufficient knowledge of the subject. Well, that applies to everything.
It does. No, my dad told me a long time ago, don't worry about patenting it, just get to manufacturing it. Because even with the patent, if you start manufacturing a product that people want, he said somebody will find a way to copy it, the Chinese or whoever, Japanese at the time, they'll copy it faster than you can produce it.
Yeah. And any benefit to having an impact flail mill much wider than the inlet feed dimension. I'm not sure what you mean by the inlet feed dimension.
Well, if you're feeding it, Bryce built his this way. He had his feed intake, but then he took his mill out longer to where his outlet was farther away.
Get a
So it's
finer
more
grind,
like it's more like I don't know if it does or not. That was a question we never ran it. But that was my thought is, does it get beat up enough times by the time it carries to the outlet to make a finer grind out of it or not?
I believe the answer is yes. And the reason is because I have run a 4-inch wide mill where basically it was 100% outlet.
Yeah, right.
And I have run 6-inch wide and 8-inch wide. That one we made for Jimmy. Okay. And the wider it seems to be, get a finer grind because it can't possibly get straight to the outlet.
Yeah.
It was so funny when I first put that thing together, get ready to court a little one, and I wanted to fire it up and try it. I didn't have that little deflector by the outlet.
Oh shit, the rocks flew right out.
Oh yeah, there's just
shrapnel.
It was hilarious. I dropped it because I had you. I said, I'm ready to fire this up. You want to watch? So she comes out the backyard and I throw stuff in. That was hilarious, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was like this vertical column of rocks, poof.
Yeah,
right,
I bet.
Yeah, it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is such a successful idea.
Yeah. And I agree. If you have an inlet on one side and then mill and then outlet on the other, you're going to get a finer grind than if you have mill with an outlet all the way across,
straight through.
or so narrow that it's just that. I would agree completely that the longer it takes to get to the outlet, you can do that. I can also see on the wear on my 6-inch wide mill, you can see the size of the impact scrapes get smaller as it goes across.
Yeah,
yep.
True. Yep.
Yep. So I would say, yes, I would say having a section that does not have an outlet will give you a better grind. Or by that I mean a finer grind. That may not be what you want, so that's not better.
A chance to be in there a little bit longer.
Yeah. And once it gets entrained kind of in the airflow and stuff, as the particle gets smaller, there's less impact energy as it hits something, so it has less tendency to just come apart. One thing that I found interesting was initially I was seeing out here bangity bangity bang when a rock goes in there.
You don't. No.
Pow.
Yep.
That's it. I mean, it just instantly disintegrates. But you put a piece of metal in there.
Well, yeah, but
and you can hear it running around and around.
That's really not destroying, as being beat around in there.
Yeah, it won't shatter like that. And I mean, you can hear it go around and around and around. And so, something as brittle as a rock, it will get piled pretty quick. But you want to have it to make several circuits kind of spiral its way out of the impact mill. Yeah, and those grates wear fast, Kodak. Yeah, that's why I don't want one. I think I'm being watched. I have a thing. Okay. I have some reading to do real fast too.
All right. We'll let Eva get in here, guys.
So let me see if I can find a flux formula. It was for zinc,
Hello.
right?
Well, this is an interesting start to the new year for everybody, I hope. When it comes to gold, there seems to be a few outlooks. Kitco had an interesting article today, so we'll take a look at this one. This is the difference between gold price surging above 2K or plunging below 1,600 in 2022. There are many opposing forecasts out there when it comes to gold price action in 2022. But what's the main difference between gold climbing back above 2,000 or dropping below 1,600 an ounce? RBC Capital Markets has outlined two outlooks for gold, the high and the low scenarios. The high one sees gold trading above 2,024 an ounce on average in 2022, and the low one has estimates for gold to trade at 1,576. The difference between those two outlooks is COVID-19 developments and other equity market performance. Funny they don't put government policy, inflation, and supply chain collapse on the list, but those are just extraneous details, I guess. The high scenario would be one where inflation is taking hold and the economy underperforms expectations. Wow, that seems to be what's going on right now. And so it looks like much more risk-off outlook, RBC Capital Markets Vice President of Global Commodity Strategy, Chris Lowney, told Kitco News. RBC's own base outlook is much closer to the low scenario because of its take on the U.S. economy and aggressive Fed rate hike expectations. The bank's base case sees gold averaging the year at $1,695, with the highest quarterly price in quarter one at $1,749 and the lowest in quarter four at $1,633. Our low risk scenario versus our base case is much closer because we think the environment can only become so much more risk off considering the last 2 years we've had. The economy has grown pretty well and unemployment is improving. Really? How interesting. For gold to change its bearish trajectory, two major game changer elements need to show up, according to Lowney. If COVID were to get worse again, or equity markets were to underperform expectations, maybe you can see a swing in investors' interest toward assets like gold. We do assume stronger equity markets over the course of 2022. If that were not to come to fruition, you could see inflows into gold. That's when our high scenario could come into place, but that is not our base case. Wow. Interesting. Never mind that equity markets very rarely have any connection to reality, With the Fed looking to begin rate hikes as early as March and projecting at least 3 rate hikes this year, gold has been trading under pressure, down 1.6% since the start of the year. We see 3 rate hikes in 2022. Inflation's going to be high. The door is open for March. There's certainly inflation to justify it. Powell has described the U.S. economy as much stronger now and closer to full employment. How fascinating. That's fitting with 3 rate hike view for 2022. One of the biggest obstacles to the gold price in 2021 was a lack of investor interest. And before gold can go significantly higher, that will have to change. If that investor interest needle were to move because of either deteriorating economic environments, COVID, or deteriorating equity market performance, again, they're completely ignoring supply chain problems, that would shift the risk skew for gold to the upside. In 2021, the main thing was the lack of investor interest, and that's because despite us being in one of the most inflationary environments in recent memory, if you told someone 3 years ago we'd have 5% inflation and gold wouldn't be doing that much, they wouldn't have believed you. Gold ended up closing the year down 3.6%, its worst performance since 2015. Activity in the gold-backed exchange-traded products was the best and most relevant example. they're down pretty significantly. And again, we're talking about an environment where everyone is talking about inflation. The fact we haven't seen inflows into gold-backed ETFs is indicative of a lack of interest among investors. People have been putting their money to work elsewhere, with gold not being viewed as cheap either. Gold consumers and retail investors are more price responsive when it comes to buying. And it's not that gold got incredibly cheap over the course of 2021 by any means. There is a strong chance gold will see very similar price action in 2022 as it did in 2021, Lowney pointed out. None of the forces that have been at play over the course of the year are going anywhere in the near term. So 2022, in a lot of respects, looks like 2021. I don't think there's enough undercurrent from inflation to really change the tide. I struggled to see what's going to change materially in 2022 on the inflation front as far as gold is concerned. I'm not sure how that reaction function changes materially in the span of a few months unless there's a really large change to the macro outlook. Now, that is a very interesting take on it because it shows the difference between the big guy thinking and the little guy thinking. The little guy last year probably would have bought a whole lot more gold and silver than he could get his hands on. The reason that we couldn't buy more gold and silver when it was a really good idea because inflation was only starting to ramp up was in part because you couldn't get your hands on it. And that came in two aspects. Aspect one being you go to your local gold store or you go to your favorite gold or silver website online looking for junk silver, looking for small denomination gold rather than 1 ounce pieces and bars and things. And all of them were out of stock. And when they were in stock, you were also looking at premiums that are still running in some places anywhere from 30 to 45% on smaller purchases, which means that the retail value of the metal was higher than many people could afford, even if they could find it. We got lucky and found junk silver last time we were in Missoula, and this time when we go to Missoula, we're going to look again because junk silver is where I think we need to go. Now, if you follow the big guy's reasoning here, even taking the higher premiums that we have to pay into account now, this is a good time to have some ready cash available and start really looking around your local area because there will be people that as inflation rises are going to have to start getting rid of some of their smaller coins or getting rid of grandma's Kennedy $50 collection because they can't pay the bills otherwise. They're going to be doing that in your local coin store. And if prices actually do continue to come down very slowly, that means you won't lose as much with that high premium. And the premiums may even come down a little bit too if the retail gold and silver market opens up more than it has been. Because at some point, people will be able to get enough product in store that they can go back to their more common volumes. So that is just one little piece of news off of Kitco that I found interesting. Now, in the crypto world, people are now buying the dip like crazy again on Bitcoin because Bitcoin decided to go down because, of course, there's a whole lot of people that like to drive it up and then sell and then buy again on the dip. So cryptocurrencies in general, I am on the fence on this one. I firmly believe that decentralized means of fiat currency exchange have a place in a healthy economy. Absolutely. Because fiat is not even real. Even our dollar bills are not real. They happen to be physically on paper, or at least some of them do. But all it is a method of accounting. Poker chips would work just as well. In Fallout, the video game, they use bottle caps. And cryptocurrencies are growing not just amongst the big boys that like to play with them and pump and dump. They're also growing amongst all kinds of ordinary people who want to take advantage of some medium of purely digital exchange that can't be tracked by certain government entities. The problem is governments don't like this, which is why they're planning to float their own digital currencies, which is the worst idea ever. Because once the government gets a hold of it, they can make it go poof. That is my problem with governments participating in this, is governments can make it go poof. My problem with them from a strictly practical standpoint is at the moment, I can't go into my local Winco and pay with Bitcoin or Ethereum or Dogecoin or anything else. And if the power goes out or the internet goes down in my area, I can't access my money. But I do believe that it's a good idea if you see a low cost cryptocurrency that you like and you have a few extra bucks that you're not really worried about and you want to let it sit and ruminate for a while. I do think it's a good idea for everyone to take a closer look at cryptocurrency. If you want to take a closer look at cryptocurrency as strictly something to learn about, the Coinbase app and the Coinbase website are actually pretty good for that because you can pick up a couple of tokens here and there when they have the NFTs, non-fungible tokens. You can pick up random new cryptocurrencies. You pick up just a couple of little coins for going through a little video about the project that it's related to. And you can trade a zillion types of currency through Coinbase anyway. So it's not a bad place to park them. It's certainly more user-friendly than some of the sites I have parked Bitcoin and such on. One of these days, I really have to try to find my Litecoin wallet, and my Ethereum, because that's the other problem with cryptocurrencies is, for those who aren't aware, you have the public key, which is a character that's about this long. And then you also have a private key, which is an entirely different character about this long. And without the private key and the public key, you can't do crap. You give the public key to everybody so they can send you money. You need the private key to do something with it. And if you have a tendency to lose private keys, this can be problematic. Unfortunately, some of us have lost private keys, and some of us have also had funds parked on mining sites that got hacked and disappeared into the ether one fine day. So this is an area that really takes a lot of research to be comfortable in, but it's quite possible that it is the future of money because as much as people want to move to a cashless society for convenience and for privacy in terms of decentralized currency, governments want to move to a cashless society for exactly the opposite reason. If it is a cashless society and they control said cashless society through data and through banks and through everything else, there's no way to hide any transaction that is not done as person-to-person barter, which really kind of sucks. We have enough privacy issues going on at the moment anyway, as we all know. Now, there's another interesting article here about hedge funds in gold. Hedge funds actually are a real problem when it comes to paper gold and paper silver. They are some of the main drivers for the horrible condition of the paper gold and paper silver markets right now. And Kikto has an article up, hedge funds shy away from gold as markets expect aggressive Fed tightening. Expectations that the Federal Reserve will meet the growing inflation threat with aggressive interest rate hikes are making investors hesitant to jump into the gold market, according to some analysts, quoting the latest trade data from Commodities Futures Trading Commission. The latest data shows sentiment among hedge fund and money managers has been relatively stable, with overall exposure declining last week. The CFTC disaggregated commitments of traders reports for the week ending January 4th. showed money managers dropped their speculative gross long positions in COMEX gold futures by 6,137 contracts to 124,252 total. At the same time, short positions increased by 1,982 contracts to 44,744. Gold's length now stands at 79,508 contracts, relatively unchanged compared to the previous week. The gold market started the first week of the new year on a strong note despite the neutral sentiment amongst the hedge funds. During the survey week, gold prices pushed to a 6-week high above $1,830 an ounce. However, the market could not hold those recent gains. Analysts note that looming interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve could keep a lid on gold prices in the near term. According to the CME FedWatch tool, markets are now pricing in 4 rate hikes this year, with the first move coming as soon as March. Everybody's been saying 3 for forever, but we're now up to 4 apparently. Investors had a mixed response to recent hawkish statements from the Federal Reserve and the acceleration of Omicron infection around the world. On the one hand, the ever louder hawkish tone from the Fed has prompted money managers to aggressively reduce long gold exposure, said commodity analysts at TD Securities. On the other hand, concerns that a global slowdown due to COVID in early 2022 may reduce pressure on central banks to introduce more restrictive policy and the likely hedging of risk drove specs to cover shorts in a robust way. Ole Hansen, head of commodity strategy at Saxo Bank, said noted resilient strength in the gold market as real bond yields have pushed to a 6-month high. However, he added the market needs to hold above $1,830 an ounce to attract new bullish investment. While investors appear to be avoiding the gold market, they're taking baby steps back into silver and reducing their bearish bets. Wow, it would be so coincidental if gold just kind of goes down into the doldrums and silver comes up just enough to get people excited. That would just be so coincidental at this point. While investors appear to be avoiding the gold market, they are taking baby steps back into silver and reducing their bearish bet. The disaggregated report showed that money-managed speculative gross long positions in silver futures increased by 1,141 contracts to 51,595. At the same time, short positions fell by 3,190 to 29,818. Look at how that ratio goes when it's the difference between gold and silver and between long and short here. It's interesting to see such active shorting of silver for no apparent reason. And this has been going on for some time, people. Silver's net length stands at 21,777 contracts, up 25% compared to the previous week. That's an interesting little factoid there. During the survey period, silver prices also pushed to a 6-week high above $23 an ounce. However, the market's been unable to hold its gains. Wow, I wonder why. Copper's disaggregated report showed money-managed speculative gross long positions in COMEX high-grade copper increased by 4,048 contracts to 60,718. At the same time, short positions fell by 1,591 contracts to 34,542. So at the moment, they're easing off on their shorting of copper, which is pretty good. And it makes very good sense considering what's going on in the not precious metals, in the strategic metals, if you will. Copper's net length is at 26,126 contracts, relatively unchanged from the previous week. Copper prices were stable during the survey week as prices tested support above $4.30 an ounce. It does not surprise me that copper is holding stable, but copper is extremely bearish long term, as is nickel at the moment. Again, because of that whole green, stuff going on. The green stuff is interesting. And if anybody else is interested, on Zero Hedge today, they brought up an interesting point about Massachusetts wastewater. Apparently, they can analyze bacteria and bugs and microbes and things in Massachusetts wastewater. And according to them, not only in Massachusetts, but nationwide, the amount of certain virus-related byproducts in wastewater is massively higher than the reported cases would indicate. Now, if that is indeed the case, and the graphs seem to show that is the case, and the data seems to show that is the case, that also means that coincidentally, the mortality rates being reported are significantly lower because there are significantly more cases that are showing no symptoms at all or think they have something else and haven't bothered to get tested or whatever. So it's just very interesting that there apparently is a huge load of this in wastewater all over the place, and people are not dropping like flies. Yes?
I think your grammar was a little bit confusing there.
Yeah.
The actual mortality morbidity is much lower than what is being reported.
Exactly.
Okay.
And on the issue of mortality morbidity, we did hear from the CDC today that apparently 75% of people that that ceased to exist on this particular physical plane had at least 4 comorbidities to go along with the virus that has no name. So that is just another interesting factoid. It's also interesting to note that hospitals are beginning to actually segregate data between people who cease to exist because of a certain illness or people who cease to exist and happen to have that certain illness at a time. That's something that probably should have been done about 2 years ago, before this whole 2 weeks to slow the spread, which turned out to be 2 years. That's just the way that goes. And Barry, you want to come over and read comments, please, and talk to people so I can.
Aren't talking to me.
Well, I can't read and stare at a screen at the same time.
Yeah, they're talking to each other.
Yeah, Garden Gnome Fauci. That's just about it there.
Alrighty, Tricky. No problem.
Which reminds me, I heard a new nickname for our vice president that I thought was cool. Kamalarki. Isn't that cute? In other news, I have been lurking around nursing forums, the places where nurses go to discuss things and other medical professionals go to discuss things. And apparently a lot of hospitals are turning into dystopian hellholes because they are extremely short of critical and very common supplies, things like IV bags and the little 10cc syringe that you use to flush ports and things of that nature. And they're posting their little notices that employees have gotten that basically say, yeah, we don't have this stuff. You're going to have to reuse it forever and a day. Don't even open anything at all unless you absolutely have to. Oh, and by the way, you may have to use real old school techniques from the 30s and 40s before this stuff was invented, and we have no clue how to do that, so have fun. A lot of that is going around in certain parts of the country. So it would be a good idea to look up the stats in your particular state with your particular government. What you're looking for is hospital capacity stats. They often have them on the CDC website. Not that I trust that website, but they also often have them on other government websites and local websites. And most of them will show the staffing capacity and the bed capacity. And you want to look and see where those numbers relate to each other. Like, for instance, my local hospital is currently at 66% capacity in terms of the number of beds that are full. They're also at 66% capacity for staff. So yeah, they're short-staffed. If they increase capacity, they're going to have a real problem. With the ever mounting supply chain disruptions, some of them caused by weather, some of them caused by various government interventions that were really bad ideas. It is getting harder and harder for places to get the stuff that they need. Part of this problem is due to what's just in time supply chain issues. Just in time was always a bad idea for anything that you actually need. Part of it is due to a whole lot of this stuff not being manufactured in the United States at all because of regulatory issues. It's cheaper to get it done overseas. And part of it is due to, in some areas of the country, weather issues and logistics issues getting things from point A to point B. So if you happen to need certain surgeries, like somebody over here is getting his hernia done fairly shortly,
I hope.
You might want to take a look at how the capacity is doing in your local medical centers and see if you can get things scheduled, if you have the money or you have the insurance or both, because this is not going to get any better. A whole lot of things are not going to get any better in that regard. For anyone who's curious, when you see news reports saying ICUs are running at capacity, that could be at capacity in one or two ways. One way would be the beds are all full. Newsflash, ICUs are generally kept very close to almost full because it's too darn expensive to run them. They lose money if they're empty, okay? Secondly, staffing shortages, which again is why you go look up those figures and figure out just how short-staffed your hospital's nursing staff is in relation to how many beds are full. Because if you have a hospital that's running at 80% capacity and 40% staffing, it's not going to be fun to stay there, okay? And it will cause problems. It will cause problems in every department of that hospital. I've also fallen down the rabbit hole of freight brokers. This is a really cool rabbit hole. It's fascinating, and it's one people don't think about. Freight brokers are the dudes that connect the load that you want to move from your factory to your customer on the other end. And they take a little percentage in the middle. So they're working with truckers, they're working with manufacturers, they're working with their customers. So customer A over here in Pennsylvania needs a load of lettuce. Customer B over here in Yuma has a load of lettuce that he wants to send somewhere. The guy in Yuma contacts a freight broker and says, how much to get my lettuce to this dude in Pennsylvania? The freight broker says, I'm going to charge you X number of dollars. Then the freight broker marks up the X number of dollars and tells the guy in Pennsylvania it will cost you Y number of dollars to get this lettuce. This is all well and good. The freight brokers are having a big problem because loads that last year they were getting for $8,500, they were getting moved for $8,000, are now costing them $16,000 to move. Between the trailer shortage, the flatbed trailer and enclosed trailers for trucks, which is expected to last at least another year to a year and a half, and the driver shortage that is due to high turnover in the mega corporations and some drivers being off the road because their trucks can't get parts or can't get DEF fluid or, can't afford the hikes in diesel because they can't get enough from their customers in terms of owner-operators. This is one part of our supply chain that nobody thinks about. We currently have the highest level ever of ships that are just floating around over the horizon off of California. We also have the highest cost to get a container of stuff in terms of get an empty container to fill. We have the highest broker rates out there, and these brokers are putting up jobs and saying, I will pay $10,000 to move this, and they're getting 0 hits on that job. They have loads that are sitting here, there, and everywhere that nobody wants to take at that price, because at that price they can't make money. So yeah, the supply chain is in very, very bad shape. Thankfully, a good number of people in the world are still clueless about this, which means there is still food on the grocery store shelves, unless, of course, you live in Pennsylvania, District of Columbia, certain parts of Virginia. You know, the whole Delmarva Peninsula area is pretty screwed up right now, and they're expecting that to last a couple of weeks. We also have corn and soybean shortages forecast for next year down in South America, which probably will not affect us too much, but they will affect a lot of things that we buy regardless. We have coffee bean shortages, which are expected to continue to be a problem. So yeah, pick up those extra couple of cans of green beans at the grocery store, because this is not a good thing at all. I will continue to deep dive in the freight brokering and the owner operator and dispatch end of trucking, because there's a lot of information there that doesn't get seen anywhere else. So if anybody is interested in such information, then you want to go to forums that these people congregate at and just read what they have to say as they're talking to each other. The industry talk is not that hard to understand, but it is worth taking a look, because the things that people in certain industries are saying to each other around their virtual water cooler are things that, for some bizarre reason, seem to completely be off the radar for the vast majority of mainstream media and regional media and local media and any media at all that isn't considered fringe elements or tinfoil hat. So a lot of people are still somewhat unaware that the stresses that are occurring within our supply chains are not something that are just going to magically go away in a year or so. Depending on the part of the supply chain, I'm seeing forecasts that are saying things may start getting a little bit back to normal in 3 years. Some people are saying we'll be lucky if we get 5 years. Other people are saying if any major natural disaster happens, any major world conflict, disruption happens, we're totally and completely screwed. So when possible, find a local source and buy local. Anyway, I will let these guys get back to it, because there is a roast out in the kitchen that is calling my name. And I actually cooked tonight, which is a very rare occurrence, you know. Did you hear that? The roast is calling my name. So I'm going to go eat about a half a pound of roast beef. Bye.
Okay. And who was that gentleman with the unusual name again? And I please don't feel insulted. I'm just terrible with names. Pushker. I think it was Pushker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pushker, are you still here? I have some information for you on the assaying. And Tricky Dicky signed off a little bit ago. Not sure about the Y tube he was talking about. It's not in my mill. So I think he was talking to Chris about it, and that's where a Y tube came up. So I say, Pushker, are you there?
Maybe not.
Yeah, he might have had to go. Yeah, I thought so, Chris.
I have to turn on this light for 1 minute.
Okay.
You'll live.
I think it'll be fine.
I'm dead.
I brightened up.
Okay. Now, on assaying zinc precipitates, and yes, it has a specific formula for it. Now, this would be for assaying, but we'll recover it very well. Precipitate 0.1 assay ton. I believe that's, what, about 3 grams? I think an assay ton is 30 grams, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so for 3 grams of precipitate, 10 grams of sodium carbonate, which is also known as soda ash or washing soda, 5 grams of borax glass, 70 grams of litharge, that's lead oxide. It says flour, the quantity for a 30-gram button, whatever that is, I'm sure it's somewhere else in the book, and 10 grams of silica. And just to give you an idea how technical this book gets, on account of the amount of gold and silver contained, the sampling and grinding should be carried out in a special room well separated from the regular assay office to avoid the danger of cross-contamination. A corner of the cleanup and melting room may be used if available, and there should be provided for this purpose a special bucking board, as well as special sampler screens, brushes, etc. The assay sample weighing 2 or 3 pounds should be thoroughly dried and ground to pass at least 80 mesh. A convenient quantity of final pulp is 150 to 200 grams, blah, 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 blah. So I say it's a very detailed book, but that's the basic formula he gives. Now that will give you a lead button with a very high rate of recovery, and then you would have to cupel the button from there to get the gold. Okay?
Keith was into that roast before.
Yeah.
John.
While she was talking, I was stuffing. Yeah, I get the basic idea, I think, Chris. Not sure how much it's needed.
Pro tip: ranch
That's
dressing.
the acid
Ranch
ton
dressing is good on roast
31
beef.
gram.
There, that's. I'm glad. I was afraid when she said pro tip. Didn't know she was a pro. But anyhow. So that's a basic assay flux for that. And let's see if I know Tricky's not here, but somewhere. Is this all just, oh, that's right. I went and somewhere I had, as I recall, a thorough look at the whole mill, and I don't see what I was expecting, because it's been a while since I made these plans. And those are the actual individual parts and pieces.
I thought there was a picture of the whole thing in there.
Yeah, with the internal stuff. Here's the actual mill itself, and this, you can see there's no Y tube in my plan. It's just a straight column, and it falls straight back down. I have, I'm not sure what the thing is. Chris is pretty smart, so I'd listen to him, but that doesn't mean he's perfect. Yeah, I bought it for $19. I don't know what the delivery charge was. It was with some other stuff, so there may have been no significant extra delivery charge. But it's a very complex book, but should be pretty handy. I don't think it's got resin in it, though. I don't think they had resin back in 1920s and 30s. But
Carbonate pulp, probably, as far as cyanide.
now it goes through a lot of details. Assays of ores and products containing metals of the platinum group, lead assays, assay of solutions, evaporation with discharge, precipitation by zinc and lead acetate, precipitation by copper salts, electrolytic precipitation, calorimetric method of testing barren cyanide solutions for gold. There could be some handy stuff in here, But anyhow, sampling and assaying of bullion, assay of complex ores and special methods. It's a very thorough and complicated book. The question is how much cross-contamination is acceptable. In an assay lab where you're looking for things like a lower detection limit of, 1/100th of an ounce per ton, when you've got something that's running like 50% gold, that can do a nasty bit of cross-contamination. And so the easiest way to mitigate that is simply do it in a separate area from where you're prepping your rock samples and such. And, in the smelting room, it's not going to have, it would have to float in the dust and land on something to do a cross-contamination as opposed to on a surface. If you were doing it on a surface, So
That's true, Chris.
Yeah. I've heard there's a shortage in styrofoam cups now too.
A lot of plastics from what I've been hearing.
There's a shortage in all types of cups: styrofoam, wax-covered paper, plastic of various types, and the lids and the straws.
Yeah, this could get interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Okay, let's put it this way. What do you think the odds are that it's not going to get interesting? Almost zero, right?
Yeah, we're on a
I don't
collision course with something here. I think.
I'm not sure how interesting it's going to get,
Well,
and how kinetic it might get. And I didn't mean the state Connecticut either. But I've never been so confident of predicting the future before in my life, basically.
Yeah.
Well, one time, yes, we're going to bomb. What was it? Iraq. We had all those troops in Saudi and stuff. It's like, it's going to kick off sometime here.
Yeah.
I say they've just done so many, and they keep doing so many things that I don't see any other alternative at this point. They're not going to stop until forced to, and by the time they're forced to, it'll be past a certain level of seriousness, which is simply difficult to fix. It's like running. Well, I'm just not going to check the oil in the engine because that's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
Well, sooner or later, that's going to come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had a friend whose sister didn't know how to check the oil in a truck. Her dad got her a truck and just kind of assumed she knew that. So she drove it till the engine seized. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I don't know. It's going to get worse before it gets better, I think. So.
Yeah. There's lots of innovation that's going to go on because as the supply chains become more and more disrupted, they're going to have to become shorter and shorter, which limits your options, and people are going to have to adapt to what's available. And some people will do that a lot easier than others.
Yeah. Depends on the product that you need, or
it all depends on what you're using and what you need and this, that, and the other. Some are easy and some are not. Yeah. So we shall see. The thing is, if the easy stuff can be done, it frees up the transportation for the more complicated stuff.
Yep.
It still doesn't help the manufacturing, though. Oh, by the way, I also heard a report that Taiwan has let China know that if China invades Taiwan, they will not take a single intact semiconductor factory. They will be gone. Now, the problem is that means they'll be gone for the rest of the planet too.
Exactly. That's the worst part.
Yeah. And so that's a potential issue in terms that'll affect a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know. I say it's completely bizarre. What?
Oh,
I hear a.
Oh,
newsflash.
Okay.
Buy a laser printer. An interesting report came out that Canon is now sending out chipless ink cartridges for their printers. And by the way, ink cartridges went up again this week, along with instructions to bypass the DRM so that they actually work. And the instructions don't always work. HP has proprietary technology for this, and nobody knows what they're going to do. And our Epson cartridges went up again. So he's going to be buying a laser printer because I'm sick of spending $100 a month or more on ink cartridges.
Well, it isn't that much.
Yes, it is.
close.
No, because we only buy them about every month or two.
Yeah, it's still expensive.
Yeah, it's still like for a complete set, color and black and white is somewhere around $50 or more. Yeah.
Yep. And we have used enough that we could have paid for a laser printer and toner by now.
Yeah. But anyhow, Sin agrees with you, little one. But yeah, I say that I think disruptions are on. I'm trying to get all my medical stuff done as quickly as possible. And well, yeah, that's nothing unusual, Terry. And I'm hoping to get this done pretty quickly. But yeah, do your maintenance, your health maintenance, your
Any
house
maintenance,
maintenance,
yeah,
your car maintenance.
If you think you're going to need it in the next year, you might want to do it now.
Yeah, Patrick, I think planet Earth will do just fine. People, not so much. I've been told we've got 10 years or 15 years or 12 years or whatever for the last 50 years. It's getting a little old,
Yeah.
It usually has some kind of caveat like, if things don't change, which they always do.
Yeah. Fear.
Yep. Well, it's not just fear, but because as the situation changes, but things become more expensive, more difficult, or whatever, they come up with a substitute or a workaround or whatever. Yep. So anyhow, I think you got something you wanted to do here.
Not really, but
Not
we can-
really. Huh?
I guess we
Man.
can do something.
He's going to sit there and look professional.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing, isn't it?
Pretty much. You're doing a great job.
Sit quietly and listen. I might learn something. Maybe. Let me pull that up a little closer. But
That board's been sitting here for about 3 weeks.
yeah, well,
Already done.
you were sick and I don't know.
I'm still sick.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean physically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought I'd come up with, after doing your testing, finding your depths to bedrock, your overburden levels, water table, where it's at. Do you have a lack of water, a lot of water? The biggest question is it mineable? And you have to start to build on what you're learning in an area to figure out if you can actually go in there and make any money or not. So this is basically pertains to placer. Hard rock is similar, but there's a lot of other changes here we'd have to look at. But piezo to gravels, your thicknesses, and a value that's economic.
Look at Terry's there.
What'd Terry say?
I like that one, Terry. The flat earth theory may not be a bit of myth. Things are starting to fall off the edge.
Yeah.
Uh,
Testing will reveal basically your depth to bedrock. If you dug down to bedrock, find out where you're at. Your water table, of course, will be pretty self-explanatory. What level and how much water you have to deal with in your design of how you're going to mine it. Your piezo and gravels, that you definitely want to know thicknesses at what levels and what kind of values you're looking at, so you can do calculations on the area the amount of area available. Is there acres to be able to possibly mine to bring in bigger equipment and do a more sizable operation? Then you start to look at, is there an area for infrastructure? You'd need, in most cases, you're going to have settling ponds, a pump pond, a campsite or a site for your equipment, a laydown yard. You need enough area for soil piles, stockpiles, your roads. A nursery is what we've done on a couple of sites, is literally create a nursery for certain plants or trees that we can move to a nursery that we can use for reclamation coming back in after the fact. And then the logistics of mobilization of what it's going to cost is the accessibility to the site for equipment. Do you have to build roads to get there? Or can you access the site reasonably well with bigger equipment? Or the size of equipment. I mean, this could even be a small operation. It's just, there's a lot of things to take into your thought process as you're planning out how are you going to mine it and if it's mineable. Hey, Ray.
That's a tough gig in Greenland he's in.
Yeah, well, yeah, this kind of pertained to you actually when I was thinking about it, is it mineable? You have to start somewhere, and you need to start answering questions before you just start digging and pushing it all through a wash plant.
What? Answer questions first?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's my
you and
problem.
Keith and I both were talking about this even earlier, that, everybody wants to get one step ahead, get the equipment in there and start mining. And that's actually the worst thing you can do. You're better off to put the money into the exploration and the testing to verify that it's worth the rest of the money and time and effort you're going to spend in trying to mine it. And everybody thinks it's as easy as just pull a backhoe onto the site and get a wash plant and start washing and you're going to make money. That's not how you're going to lose a lot of money. That's all you're going to do. And once you've spent your money, it's hard to make the changes at that point that are going to be necessary to straighten out what you've created at that point. Once you've used up that time and effort and that money that you started with, then you're in trouble. Yeah, Ray. Everybody thinks it could be that easy, and it's not.
Well, for $10,000 or $20,000, you could probably find a lot of gold.
Well, yeah, but what?
See, how much houses would that buy?
Some of this, yeah. Well, that's one way to do it, is actually take the money and just go buy the gold.
Yeah,
because that's
spread it out there.
At least at that point, you know how much you lost. If you start trying to mine, and it goes on for a year or two, and you're losing money, then you'd have wished you'd have just went and bought the gold.
Well, no, you had the producers buy the gold.
Yeah.
You might suggest that to them, Ray, if you get in the bind. Man, we just found this neat pocket over here where it makes no sense, but the twins just panned it, and there it was.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think you can just hand scatter it. It would work okay. There's the ground cover there would cover it up.
Exactly, Paul. I mean, a lot of guys want to just jump in there and mine, and I feel the same way. I mean, you want to get on the ground, you want to get at it, but if you do your homework, you can figure out at what level, what do you got to get a week to make this work? Once you've factored in all the things that go with mining it, you get a better idea of how many ounces a week would you actually need to even break even with your labor costs and fuel and repair costs and all the numbers. Where are you going, Keith?
I'm just going to look for something here and see if it's still there.
And I'll go into a lot more logistical stuff as we go along.
Little one. Mm-hmm. Was it hardrockuniversity.com? Where's the website?
It's a complicated thing now.
Okay, well, because I had a form, like 4 pages of things you need to go through to figure out. Yeah, it's a whole list of stuff. Let me see.
I've got some placer ground leasing contract stuff I want to go over one night.
Here,
I
will
may
pull it
we
up
may actually
on
make a
the other
video out
computer.
of some of that, just so that's a direct video to answer some of these questions. The live stream gives us a chance to talk directly with you guys, but there's a lot that goes into trying to figure out the whole process and go in there so that you can make money and not lose everything.
But yeah, I made it's a preliminary assessment form, so you can go out to a new location and write down all of this stuff.
Yeah,
I will get you the link and you'll have to type it in.
I'm just making sure it's still up and everything.
Yeah,
It's still
things
up.
tricky,
It's just
you know,
harder
we'll-
to get to than it used to be.
thanks for even being here. We always like it that you're here.
Yeah, Eva's looking it up here.
Okay, https:////
What?
https://// You're going to have to type it in.
No, I don't. Watch this. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Click
Oh,
on it.
definitely, John. And
Copy
Jeff can
No.
go
No,
with
no,
that
no.
too. I mean,
You
you
had
can
the
be
cursor
very,
on
very
the actual
successful
site.
in this,
I said,
industry.
Is that it?
There you
But
go.
there's definitely mistakes that
You
you
can't
don't
do it
want to
on-
make if you can help it. And by doing your homework ahead of
I
time,
do it here all the time.
You can
Now
hold
watch
off
this.
on making some of those mistakes. And that's why Keith and I started doing this.
Why not?
Is to try to help
see what
anybody,
happens.
whether, as a small miner or as a miner, in navigating all the different things that go into mining something.
Let me turn the sound
drop.
down here. Okay, what I'm going to do is theoretically post a link. And that gets me to my my website, and there is a form there called Project Checklist, instant download. And just click on that and you can print it out. It's free. And that's the whole purpose, was to give you a list. Oh, I guess it downloads it. Let's see. I guess you just download it to your computer is what it does. There's also my mining project economics estimator, where you can put in grade, costs, and all this sort of-
that was a really good one. That was the one video you did that I go back to that every once in a while myself.
Okay.
Just because, it keeps you in your mind, refreshing things to think about.
Yeah. So if you go to that website there, I haven't maintained it worth a darn, but that has the project checklist and the mining project economics estimator. The checklist you download, gets in your computer, and you can actually just print it out as many times as you want. The economics estimator is resident on the website. You have to use it from the website.
Right.
But you can punch in your rough numbers and it'll give you a rough idea of how much profit or loss you might get.
Right. As well as that book of Rob's. I mean, there's some good calculations and things in there for yardage and numbers, and the way to gold down to almost nothing for calculating.
Yeah.
But originally that's why we kind of started doing this between Keith and I, is anything we can do to help you guys. And it has brought some really cool people together for this show. Really good questions. It's brought up a lot of questions that we've actually had to look for answers to. Copy and paste.
Keith Bowen, Wix, Sitecom, Hard Rock U. Well, I just copy and pasted it here. Let me try something. Let me close that. Let me open another window.
Go back on.
Control V.
Go back to this video and see if you can copy and paste it out.
That one right there. Huh. Interesting. That doesn't get us there, little one.
Well, he'll figure it out, guys. So
We'll try and get it figured out either right now or I don't know. But yeah.
Paul says it'll get you right there.
Yeah,
So,
it
I
gets
don't
you
know.
right there.
Huh.
Interesting. Why did it
Yeah.
give me?
We'll see.
Not what you-
Oh, wait a minute. It may just take a while. Yeah.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Anyhow, I say, but those are some of the tools. By the way, that economics calculator, that took me and Joachim about 2 weeks
Put together
to do that because I basically said, okay, these are the this is kind of the structure, and then he's the programmer dude, but he had no idea what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So then he'd bring the program, and then we'd have to go, and I'd
No.
have to try stuff. It's like, well, that's not working right. So it took it.
Great, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah. But anyhow, so I say there's a couple of tools there that are useful. Another one, handy conversion factors,
Yep.
can also come in real handy too. But that was the purpose of the website, to give these tools to make it easy for people that didn't have all the mathematics and everything, so that they could just fill in the blanks and see what happens. Mac here, no right click. Electrons, me, I have no clue. Chris would probably know. But anyhow, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. It's if there's questions, just throw them up. But
yeah, and that's a good thing for you too, Ray. That estimator is a good tool for you to just start throwing numbers in there. And one thing that I found that was very useful was it really gave me a good idea of what kind of tonnage and grade and recovery I needed to get into the profit.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes it's a little bit counterintuitive.
Well,
what happens when you change certain
even
things.
with the placer, there's a level of economics you have to do to pay for equipment and things. I mean, you can go out and get a 5-gallon bucket of gravel every day and get some gold. And there's plenty of videos out there every day that you can watch that, yep, they got $20 worth of gold. They only spent 14 hours and a half a tank of gasoline to do it. But
like John said, $3 postage
right,
for 50
yeah,
cents.
yeah. So the thing is okay, if you can successfully find that gold, now delineate how big an area is it, and what kind of depths, and and do some calculations, because it very well might be worth bringing in a small excavator and a little wash plant and getting your best buddy or hiring somebody to help you, and a little two-man operation actually could be very profitable. But at 5-gallon buckets at a time, you're never going to make enough to cover your expenses.
Yeah.
So it really is a numbers game to get to where you want to make some money.
Yeah. And the other
or
thing,
even as a hobby, just to continually buy new equipment, to play with, you want to make a little bit of money doing it.
the other thing that's a bit counterintuitive is the tonnage of the ore body goes up to the cube of the size. So if you had something 100 feet by 100 feet by 100 feet, and then you just double that, you don't get twice the tonnage. You get 8 times the tonnage.
Right.
And so that makes a lot of difference. So yeah, that's that's why originally it was just a spreadsheet I made years
Yeah.
ago. And I had fun playing with that thing. Like, well, what do I do this? What do I do that? And, once I went to a new thing and I got a good idea of what the ore grade was and I knew what size the vein was, I'm like, yeah, that isn't going to work.
Well, Paul, there is some truth to that. And part of that is, you can do a little manufacturing business 12 months of the year. Like here in Montana, we can only mine for 5 or 6. So, no, there's some truth to being able to, build stuff for the miners or supply the miners, because you're also the guy who gets paid right. You get paid right away. The miners, it might take them months to get to a point where they can sell their gold or their whatever they're finding.
Just don't sell it on credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so those are some tools for you guys that might be useful. No guarantees they're 100% accurate, but it'll give you a good idea. You always double check my math before you spend large quantities of money. Trust me.
Yeah, no. Recalculate, calculate, it's the same as the testing. Test, then test again, and then test one more time just to verify.
Well, and the other thing is too, unless you have to, you should redo the calculation from scratch.
Right.
Because if you just redo the operations that somebody else has done.
Yeah. Do your own homework, not somebody else's homework. Yeah.
It's just like somebody was talking the other day about, a little while back, they counted a bunch of pieces of paper, and some people had questions as to whether the count was accurate. So some people recounted the pieces of paper and said, well, yeah, it's accurate. And they said, yes, but some of those pieces of paper shouldn't be there, is the contention. Recounting a stack doesn't tell you whether or not the stack is the right stack. Yep. Yeah, I understand, Ray.
No,
You're in a tough situation.
Well,
I do not envy you.
Well, some of the numbers you got to use, Ray, from what I've figured out over the years, is you really have to, look at the value of what one day is. And, if you've got, like here, we've got 150-day mining season, maybe 160. If you look at your daily costs, a lot of them are fixed. You know what labor is. You know what your equipment costs as far as the equipment you've got right now. You know what those costs are, and you can average that out over the 150 or 60 days or whatever, in your case, whatever the mining season is up there. You can start to calculate and get a really good idea that we need, this much every day just to break even with where we're at right now. That's without adding more or buying another piece of equipment or leasing it. See, you can really start to look at what your true costs are just to be there, and that's a starting point. Yeah, I always thought about doing that, John. Just buy gold from the guys that are out here mining, because I know I could get them better money out of their gold than what they're getting in a lot of cases too, but. Well, not necessarily, Ray, but it's a long-term game, and it's a long play. And that's one of the worst parts about it, is it may take a year or two to get to a point where now you're going the other way. And in that case up there, maybe it'll take 5 years. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you can find and, get into the right amount of value. One ore body can change the whole thing. I had an old time miner tell me one time, you go out and you dig 100 holes, and the 101st hole will pay for the first 100, and it'll pay to dig another 100. And there was a lot of truth in what he told me, because if you quit looking, yep, you're done. That's as far as you go. But if you keep digging and keep testing and keep looking, when you hit the right one, it pays for a lot of things. It changes the whole dynamics of the thing, but there's that learning curve in there that until you work through that learning curve, it can be one frustrating mother.
No.
Yeah, I remember one time when I was, I don't know how many months into it I was, but we were having, just enough gold to maybe pay for fuel and keep digging holes and keep testing and running some material that looked good, and that wasn't as good as it looked in the tests. And had I had a case of dynamite, I kid you not, there was a day that I would have blown all my equipment up and walked out of there. I mean, that's how frustrating it can be. But then all of a sudden you get into a good area, a good load in there, you're working out, and suddenly it's like, holy crap, this is real and we're really doing this. And the satisfaction of actually getting to that point is something you can't buy.
Yeah, that's another thing.
I agree, John. I mean, there's, oh yeah, Ray.
That would be really photogenic.
When you're getting near that point of wanting to blow it all up, you're probably getting close to finding some gold too.
Well, you heard it from him, right? You got to dig 100 holes,
yeah.
And on the 100, not the 102nd, the 101st.
Well, that's what I was told by an old miner, and I think there was a lot of truth in that statement, because I've spent a lot of years running around in these mountains and digging and digging and digging, and yeah, it takes a while to find the next one. But they do exist. They're still here. Actually, I think a lot of the gold, there's probably more gold still in the ground than was ever even close to taken out of here.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
And some of these drainages were in the millions of dollars worth of gold at $16 and $20 gold. And a lot of it's still there. It's the deep stuff they didn't get to, the stuff on the side channels, the high bank stuff. A lot of it, they may have drifted on some of it, but they never really took the majority of it out. The drift encompasses, 10%, 20% of what is really mineable.
I don't think that's legal, Lincoln.
Yeah, there's a federal level to that, Lincoln.
Yeah, if you try that, then you're going to have to deal with Bubba. And Bubba's probably less pleasant to deal with than what you're dealing with right now. Just a guess. Oh.
Come on, guys. Any other questions out there?
There's got to be something, man.
Comments.
Oh. Yeah, at least I'm having fun figuring out all these things. I feel fairly confident that the resin roasting thing may or may not work, but I think if I put litharge in there, it'd pretty much be a done deal.
You'll hold it. Yeah, you'll hold it, I think.
Yeah. Because apparently when you're assaying zinc, you have the same kind of problem of volatilization. So,
Terry, I actually have been starting to do more notes and writing a little bit more. I'm hoping to do a book, I guess, to live long enough.
You should do a book this winter.
Mohammed, that really would depend on the amount of water flow or, what happened in that general area. In a lot of cases, a lot of the heavier gold will naturally find the bedrock or false bedrock. It will go down. And on here on a lot of these drainages, they only mine the top, kind of the cream off the top, because they couldn't deal with the water issues as they got deeper, and they could not get their tailings to run down gradient away from them if they started to, dig a hole anywhere where maybe the bedrock tipped over. They couldn't mine that stuff in the old days because unless they started to drift in lower and literally come up through the rock like a drain or a bedrock drain. So in a lot of cases, most of these drainages were mined very shallow unless an electric dredge or something huge was in there doing work, which was mainly in the later days, 1920s, 30s. As late as here in Helena, they ran electric dredges here in town up until like 1957 or something, I believe.
Have a good feed there, Ray. And I hope those tools may be of some help to you too.
Yeah, thanks, Ray, for being here.
Oh, that'd be so cool if one of our ideas really helped him have a successful season next year, wouldn't it?
I hope he has a successful season.
Well,
I
how do
really
I?
do.
I'm just saying it'd be cool if we helped. Yeah. Oh, well, I hope we all have a successful season, as in survival next year.
Good point, Chris. I guess I didn't really mention that to Mohammed, but yeah, in some cases, the drainage or the creek itself may not be the main gold. That's something that you have to determine and try to figure out. That's the prospecting side of it.
Yep. If it was easy, anyone could do it.
Only if there was
Sorry, Terry. It's past my bedtime.
No, Mohammed, sometimes the dredges actually threw quite a bit of gold out the back of the dredge, depending on how they were running the material and what they were running for material. In some cases, it could be deep if it was dredged with dredging, which is going to be really hard as just a small miner to get to if it's depth.
Well, on the bottom, they couldn't get the pockets in the bottom.
If the bedrock varied a lot, the dredges were not that effective either.
Yeah.
And I've seen cases where the dredges, some of the tops of the rock piles, they threw out probably, I don't know, a good percentage of gold that they should have gotten, but depending on how they were running material through the dredge.
Well, I also heard that in some cases where they were expecting a lot of fines,
they put a fine screen.
They would put a screen on it that would throw out the nuggets, and your metal detector would work
and
on
that's
that.
That's there's some guys remining stuff in Alaska that was exactly the case. They ran too fine of screens in the dredge.
Thank you, Shotgun. Or Shogun, rather. Possibly, Jeff, actually in the book, it has a thing on how to assay solutions. Haven't got to that yet.
That's probably true, Paul, and in some cases it may be even quite less than that. Some of it may have been as low as 50%.
Mohammed, yeah, most of them are. When you mine with a bucket line dredge, it leaves a rather distinctive stuff behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen areas where guys said, well, that was dredged. And it's like, no, those are hand piles. If they're hand piles, there could very well still be a lot of gold there to find. Most of the big dredges left big rock piles, that were, they varied enough in the pile that you literally can read the piles. Exactly, John.
Caterpillar. I used to drive a Caterpillar.
Well, like Chris is saying, the piles are distinct because they piled like this as they move.
Stacking conveyor.
So you end up with these funny rows that are like a caterpillar. When you look at a caterpillar, the insect.
Yeah.
It's got the humps.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what the piles kind of look like. They overlap as they move ahead.
Yeah. It could be, but quartz is pretty hard rock. But the buckets have teeth on them that could do that.
They did dive in the bedrock as much as they could.
How far were they able to go without using mercury?
A lot of them, they used mercury on them in the sluice box.
Probably 100 mesh was pretty easy without mercury, wasn't it?
they could probably even, depending on what you're using for carpeting or matting, they could probably even go down quite a bit smaller than that.
Yeah.
That's true, Chris. I mean, it's not always obvious. And that's one reason, if you can do any homework, you know, in the region that you're looking, the area, try to learn as much about what happened as you can. Yeah, they did that too, Chris. They ran copper plates in their sluice box, which were lined with, you know, pasted with mercury.
Yeah, and
And that would pick up pretty fine gold, but not all fine gold will attach to mercury either.
yeah, and Jeff, the whole situation with large, they were screening it because most of the gold was fairly fine. They might have screened it to 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, something like that. Any nugget bigger than that's going to get thrown away,
Blown out.
and those are the kinds that are easy to pick with a metal detector. So it's worth trying that and seeing what happens. Also, there's a situation. Gruber Ned from Australia, he put up a video last night, about 45 minutes long actually, but he's reworking quote unquote tailings. I presume he's accurate. These are actually mine tailings, hard rock mine tailings, I'm guessing. But he was processing it with the Eco Gold X, and after processing, he's getting more gold in the pan than before processing. So I'm thinking he's probably got gold that's encapsulated or coated or something like that, and the agitation and the chemical is cleaning it.
Yeah, it's freeing up more gold.
And freeing up more visible gold. But that's a rather unusual circumstance in terms of what was happening to him. So that's quite interesting. But yeah, he had plenty in that pan, real fine gold, you know, like 200 mesh. But I mean, it had a smear about this big in the pan.
Wow.
And that's, you know, maybe 5 or 10 pounds of tailings after 12 hours of leaching with Eco Gold X.
Well, I can show you a couple of drainages here that they hydraulicked them with hoses, and they probably blew more gold out and left behind in the tailings than they took when they mined it, because they had a lack.
Can we prospect them?
They had a lack of water, and so they were limited to maybe 1 month a year of running gravel down their sluice boxes. And they set their sluice boxes at really steep angles using pole riffles, and tried to just only get the coarse heavy gold and blow all the rest out. Well, the drainages, the two that I'm thinking of in the back of my mind, I mean, literally they were probably 80% fine gold. Well, they blew all that right back into the drainage. They weren't trying to catch it. They were only going after all the coarse, heavy gold that they could, because they only had a month of water to flush.
Well, Mohammed, the dredge floats on the water, but you can move the pond by dredging the stuff ahead of you and piling it behind you and building a dam behind you, essentially.
Well, they could dredge
and keep working your way uphill that way.
They could go up drainage and they could go down drainage. They could dredge both directions.
I think it would be harder to go down though, because your tailings
you know
are
what?
going to tend to wash
A
in
lot
on
of
you.
these dredges, when they started at the top, and they came down, then they turned and went back up, and then they came down and they turned and went back up. When they dismantled the dredge, or if they walked away from the dredge is still sitting up on top of the mountain.
Now,
which is interesting as hell.
When you said they came down and up, you mean they were cutting parallel slots as they worked their way?
Yeah,
Okay.
and like you say, they only carry a pond with them as far as the hole they're working in.
Yeah.
But I mean, the one on Gold Creek up there, there's still a dredge sitting way up there in the mountain, right where they stopped it.
How deep of water did they need to float the dredge?
Not real deep.
About 5
feet, maybe.
2 meters,
Yeah.
you know.
And then it depended on the size of the dredge as to the depth. A lot of the ones that worked here, the smaller ones in the mountains, were only like 40 or 45 footers. So they didn't have a lot of digging depth.
Okay.
You know, more than you can dig with a shovel, basically. But
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, I don't know if you're familiar, Mohammed, but the dredge doesn't have any propulsion on it. It just has winches. And so you set anchors and you literally winch the dredge around on the cables that are to the anchors.
left and right and forward.
Yep. It's amazing what they can do with those things.
Yeah, and there was a lot of land even here in Montana that was drilled and shafted to verify there was enough gold to run a dredge, and they got into some environmental problems in the 1930s and 40s, and some of these drainages were never dredged that were intended to be dredged. They had good enough results from their shafting and testing that they were going to dredge them, and it never happened. And in the case now where you can use excavators and trucks and basically dry land dredge, there's a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money yet.
Chris, would they skid them or would they put trees under them as rollers?
That's what they did, Dave.
And the funny thing is, anything they could do 100 years ago, we can do even better now.
Oh, way
If they
better.
just
We
let
can
us.
do way better. Actually, we know a lot more about it too than a lot of the first guys who did it didn't have as many answers as we've got now.
It's funny. There's a big mine in Arizona called Morenci, and there's a creek that comes into it. The pit just takes a big bite out of a whole canyon, and they pump or pipe that creek all the way around
it, and dump
and it's now cleaner than it was when they first started because it used to run
right
through
the
mineralized ground.
Sure.
No,
there's no reason we can't viably mine things.
They do repair and maintenance to some extent, Mohammed. Sometimes they just go someplace else for the winter.
Some miners here in the winter, actually, they drifted under the ground on the benches and stuff, and they'd pile up the gravel and wait till spring to wash all their gravel. Because our frost here doesn't get real deep because of the snow. The snow actually insulates to a certain extent.
This one by Jeff there. In Canada, there were boats in the timber industry called alligators that could drag themselves over dry land to reach water. Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of like lungfish. Yeah. People are very innovative when there's money or survival to be had.
Yeah,
one or the
when there's
other.
a way.
Yeah.
If there's a will, there's a way. That still holds true.
To a great extent.
Yeah. Somebody will figure it out.
And when you got a strong will and brains, think Elon
stuff,
Musk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what
I don't
can
know.
get
The
done.
stuff that amazes me is you go back and look at the old cable equipment they had, now with hydraulics, we take a lot of things for granted. It's easy to lift it up, move it, and put it over there. Well, in the old days with cables and ropes and pulleys, and some of the engineering these guys came up with was ingenious, and it was very little effort. Once they had their design, it worked.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow.
Now, there's a number of things, John, that we'd have trouble duplicating today. Critical thinking. I'm critical of that.
Take offense to that. Critical.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah. Pretty soon you're going to cast asparagus.
Exactly, David. Yeah. If there's money to be had there, somehow they'll figure out how to go through it or over it or under it.
I prefer my shortened, condensed version of that, Paul. Necessity is a mother. Just as accurate Much easier to say. I think the hydraulic sluicing was actually gravity mostly.
Most
right?
of the stuff that was done here was gravity. They took the water from way up on the mountain and downsized the pipes until they got down to where they could hose it or a monitor to shoot it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Big nozzles. Yeah. Amen, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen that, Stephen. That was a good video, actually, of how that worked.
It melts from the snow. Mohammed's from rain or snow. They build a dam to catch the enough of the creek and divert it. Oftentimes at the top, it was just a ditch. And then it would get to a certain point, they'd put it in a pipe. And as it would keep coming down the pipe, the pressure would build and build and build. And finally, at the bottom, there's enough pressure that you're running, 100 PSI?
Oh, some of them,
PSI?
yeah, they were incredible. They'd cut.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like it was being pumped.
You can get about 1 pound per square inch for every 2 feet of drop. So when you got a mountain 1,000 feet high, you could theoretically get 500 pounds per square inch of pressure, which is 5 times that in a semi truck tire.
Yeah. A friend of mine, he piped water down to his cabin and he thought he wanted enough water pressure. So that's what he did. He kept downsizing the pipe. I think he started out at 4-inch and downsized till he was down to a 1/2-inch water line at the cabin.
Yeah.
When he turned the water on, it blew all the faucets and everything right off the counter in the cabin.
Well,
the pressure was like 100 and some 100 psi.
That'll only work.
And it was only supposed
water.
to be it was only supposed to be 15. But yeah, they turned the faucets on when it picked up the pressure.
Well, the thing is
It's explosive.
the static pressure
is
going to be
right.
just from all the gravity.
The weight.
Yeah, the downsizing the pipe makes no difference to the static pressure.
But the faster the water starts coming, the more the pressure picks up.
Okay, Chris says where he was at, there were places with over 1,200 feet of head. So you had like 500 or 600 pounds per square inch of pressure. Anyone know the quick conversion to metric for Mohammed? Let's see.
Yeah, that some of the engineering, especially some of these ditches, John, that the Chinese and some of the white guys too, it's pretty darn amazing what they did to get water where they wanted it.
What is that? The metric unit of pressure. Newtons? PSI to kilopascals. There you go. 1 PSI is 7 kilopascals. So you're looking at 3,500 kilopascals, Mohammed, if that helps you.
Yeah.
Or divide by, let's see, where was I? Jeez. PSI to bar. Oh, a kilopascal is an atmosphere. It's the same number.
Okay.
Okay. I think 0.0689. Calculator over there. So if you had
As for 1 pound
600 psi times 0.0689, 0.0689, and you get 41 atmospheres of pressure coming out the end. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how they would do it, Mohammed.
this took on.
That's
a
true.
nice-
That's true, John. While they were digging the ditches, they might run into
Oh, yeah.
gold.
No,
Absolutely.
I'd always tell you guys, go walk those ditches with your metal detectors up on those sides of those hills and stuff. You never know where you're going to find gold. In an area like that where they ditched it out, digging along and throwing the dirt onto the downslope side or something, always has the potential to find some gold that they dug right through.
Yep. Yeah. Good night, David.
Yeah, good night, David.
I already am rich, just not in
Yeah.
money. Have a good life. Have interesting things to do, and I'm happy. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. I say it's amazing when you don't have it and you need it, you come up with a way.
Yeah.
Interesting, Jeff.
Yeah. No, some of the things these old guys did is just, it'd be hard to do today with the equipment and the knowledge we've got. Some of it was just like, wow, how they did this.
When I was at Picacho, we had to pump water 4.5 miles from the river up. It was about 600 feet vertical. We had to, something like that. And with the pipe, we had to replace the pipe. It was, I think, 4-inch, that spiral steel pipe they used to
Yeah.
make. I guess
Yeah.
it was hammer forged, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
And anyhow, the we replaced it with 6-inch plastic, but the bottom half or more had to be fiberglass reinforced to take the pressure, just because of the high pressures to get it up.
Get it up that high.
Once we got to a certain
lift.
elevation, then we just went to straight PVC, but it was the slip joints, not glue joints.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of funny because I had a little Yamaha Trimoto. Before they had quads, they had tris.
Yeah.
And the guys would go down there in the morning and they'd spend half a day digging trench and laying pipe and stuff. And then in the afternoon, I'd take them the front end loader so they could pick up screened material and cushion the pipe.
Yeah.
And so I just put the Trimoto in the bucket and head on down there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in old Michigan, and the hydraulics bled off, so you'd have to keep
Popping the bucket.
I forgot
back up.
one time also I hit a bump, and all of a sudden there's just dust coming up around me. It's like,
Just
yeah.
smashed a three-wheeler.
The front forks were parallel to the rear axle. But our mechanic, he bought that from me for like $100. Cut the frame into like 13 pieces, straightened them all individually, welded it back together, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we find a lot of old riveted pipe yet up on some of these sites, and some old cabins they used it for the smokestack in the cabin.
Now, when you say riveted pipe,
It's
the
a
strip that's
galvanized.
just rolled.
It's a galvanized
and
piece
then
of
riveted?
pipe, and they rolled it and they riveted it.
Okay.
There's a line of rivets down it. You'll see it in these old mines. Some places they
Okay.
used it for their air. They must have went and dug, found some somewhere and brought it up to the old mine and put it in for, pumping air.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll see it's riveted, like a galvanized looking riveted pipe,
Okay.
like stove pipe, but riveted
Yes,
and
I-
heavier, heavier.
I've seen the
walls to it.
spiral
Yeah,
wound pipe
yeah.
before.
that
I haven't
too.
seen that. Never seen riveted yet.
Oh, I can show you quite a bit of it. There's a lot of it laying around on these old mine dumps and stuff.
Huh, interesting. Oh. trying to remember when Picacho was opened before. I think it was around 1900, somewhere around there. I think is when they opened it up.
And wooden pipe. I've seen a lot of wooden pipe. too.
Really?
Yep.
Where they just they lathe
It's
it,
just
just bore it, or what?
No, they actually put wood slats together and then
Kinda
they
like a
wrapped
barrel,
it with
huh?
wire.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all wooden pipe. You actually see quite a bit of it here in certain places where they had wooden pipe. So somebody, one of the lumber yards or somebody must have been building it around here.
I'm guessing it leaked a little bit at least.
Well, wood would swell though, and that's probably
Yeah,
why
the
they
wood
wrapped
swells,
they
that's-
wrapped the wire tight enough on it though that once it swelled, it was.
Exactly. That's how ships work. Romans used wooden pipes for a lot of
Yeah.
things as well in their mines.
She would know about Romans.
And Roman mines.
Uh, huh.
I've got one, John, that I've been working on the last couple of summers up there that they got. I don't know how they did it, but somehow in the 1880 something, they got a 5-stamp mill up on that mountain. And the flywheel on that darn thing has got to be 5 feet or better. And I to this day, the steam engine they had up there to run it, I have no freaking clue how they got that up there.
Sky
I
frame.
mean, yeah. I mean, nowadays, yeah, you could hire the military to fly it up there and land it for you. But I mean, in the 1880s, there wasn't even a good road here short of the military trail through town here. And they got the steam engine and that 5-stamp mill put together up there on a mountain. And it's just amazing. It's like, how in the hell
What if
did
they rolled the flywheel up the trail?
Well, even the stamp mill in pieces would have been easy enough, I guess, with
Yeah.
enough mules or oxen.
Yeah.
But the frickin' that it's a small locomotive, that steam engine,
Uh-huh.
and it's all riveted steel. You know, if you've ever looked at how
Yeah.
you know they look like just
Yeah.
like on a train, and how the heck they got that on top of that mountain up there is beyond me. Because there's even today, the road that gets up there is quite an event. So I can't imagine how long it took them to get that on top of that mountain.
It's amazing. You get enough muscle working hard enough or efficiently enough.
Yeah, Chris, but I don't know. They had to have spent, I imagine it came in on the train to somewhere up here when, because that would have been about the time that the tracks got laid into this area. And then even with a huge team of oxen, it had to have taken like 2 months to get it up that road up onto that mountain. I mean, it could not have been a little feat.
Well, a boiler you could actually take up there in the original piece and rivet it on site would be a possibility.
Looking at this thing, I think it was I think the boiler itself was in one piece. I don't know.
That's possible.
I mean, because the rivets are, they're that
Yeah.
damn big and they're conical, how they shaped them conically. To have them pounded that thing all together up there, I don't know.
I'd like to go see that. That would make a cool video.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Cold T cells also protect against certain other viruses.
Which kind?
Common cold T cells.
Ah, certain common cold T cells. Yep.
Yeah, wooden pipe, if it stayed wet, it wouldn't rot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, wood
Yeah.
underwater or wood that stays wet won't rot away.
The Romans used to use wooden piping in a lot of their mining areas.
Yeah, it's pretty neat to look into this history of some of this mining and then look at what these guys did. It's mind blowing almost of how much work they did by hand.
It's amazing as how much they could accomplish.
Yeah, it's,
You know,
you know, how do you eat an elephant? You know,
have somebody else.
one bite at a time. That's how they did it, is one, you know, one step at a time. But they were persistent, evidently.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get a team of high school kids to do that for a day and you'd lose them all.
There was a movie, not a movie, a documentary, I think it was called Gold Lust, about I believe it's Cerro Pelado mine in Brazil. Remember, it's an old placer deposit.
How interesting.
And the guy who found it was a farmer. He was actually digging post holes.
Yeah.
Bang! Pulls up a nugget. And so he got the claim on it, but he didn't have any money. So then he started subdividing the claim and selling portions. And he wound up selling like 3,000 claims, each one like 10 meters by 15 meters. And it was just a whole series of almost like Devil's Post Piles thing.
Yeah.
And it was all being mined by hand, and the dirt was being carried out by hand. They called them in. There were like 40,000 workers digging by hand and carrying out sacks of ore and overburden and stuff.
Well,
How interesting.
Yeah. What?
The more eggs you eat, the less likely you are to have clinical depression.
Really?
Choline, which eggs are very rich in choline, is inversely correlated with depressive symptoms. Nobody ever bothered studying it before.
So if you're depressed, eat eggs.
Actually, if you're depressed, eat fish and eggs, fatty fish like salmon.
Salmon and eggs. So you need a salmon omelet every morning for breakfast.
Salmon and eggs.
Have you ever had salmon pizza?
No.
Oh, that was good. It was, I believe, salmon and Alfredo sauce and probably mozzarella cheese or whatever. And it was at a salmon festival just north of Seattle. It was one of the coastal tribes that has an annual salmon festival. It was wood-fired salmon pizza. It was good. It was really good. Man.
Fins do not belong on pizza.
There was no fins.
No fins and no feathers on pizzas.
Apparently she doesn't like chicken either. Yeah. No. Oh. Well, hopefully it doesn't get to that point, John. Oh. But anyone got any more questions?
Yeah.
That one from Mohammed took us a half an hour to work out. I don't know about capers, Chris. I've never had capers to my knowledge. You don't want to, Paul.
Is he talking about putting capers on pizza?
That's what Chris says. Chris was talking about capers on pizzas.
Californians.
Capers.
How about avocado? Oh, yes, let's just put avocado on our vegan cheese pizza.
No.
I don't think avocado cooks very well. I think it melts or something.
Yeah, it doesn't even sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it on our vegan the other week. Somebody put their avocado, caper, olive, and spinach vegan pizza up.
You can't hardly find an old mining cart around here anymore. Them guys cleaned them up, selling them to Disneyland and everybody else.
Oh. I think so too. At some way, I think they do weird things when you cook them. I like pineapple on my pizza, John. Eva would hit me with a large something or other, and as I said, you probably heard that, but she was very careful to keep it off camera. Okay.
Hawaiian pizza.
She doesn't care if she goes to jail. Yeah, I say I like it, but you know, what was that? Ti gusto what?
What?
Latin? Something about gusto?
De gustibus non est disputandum.
Did you get that, guys? That was Lantern. In matters of taste, there is no dispute. Nah, not anchovies, Chris. Not doing it.
As I said,
The frisky
no
ones are
fish,
good
no
for
feathers.
bait. Yeah. We eat, what are they, Quest pizzas? Is it a cauliflower base for the crust or what?
The Quest pizzas, I believe, are a variant of the fathead recipe. So almond flour and cheese and such. They're rather crisp. It's got a good structural integrity.
Yeah, the Quest pizzas have low carbohydrates, and then we usually load it up. I mean, they're a typical frozen pizza, not much on top of it. But then we'll throw like some of our meat mix or something else like that, and a bunch of cheddar cheese, till it's like this thick, and then cook it, and that's fine.
Yeah, Shogun, you never know. You might get lucky and find a mine car somewhere in a mine, but a lot of times when those guys left the mine, they took those mine cars just for the fact that they were harder to replace. The track, a lot of times they left the track, but they take the mine cars. I've been in a lot of mines, and some of the ones that were opened here back in the 40s and 50s, the guys just took the mine cars, for scrap or whatever. And I know where there's some mine cars up by Marysville where they pushed them into the dump, and then they pushed the rest of the dump over the top of all the mine cars.
Well, that's rude.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I'd like to find like some mining lanterns or something. The little miner's lamps. That would be cool.
Little carbide lamps. Yeah, Paul, some people think like that. I don't deal with people who think like that. Yeah, what's yours is yours. Got it.
Montana, Shogun.
Where is Marysville?
Just up the road here. We'll drive up there
Sail
someday.
towards Butte, or
No, north. Go up here around the scratch gravels,
okay.
and just after the other side of the scratch gravels, up by Birdseye, above Birdseye,
Birdseye.
you turn left up into Marysville.
Okay, 'cause I've heard about it.
Yeah, I'll take you up. It's a neat ghost town kind of. It's not really a ghost town. There's probably, I don't know, a couple hundred people who live up there, but it's still the old part of the
Pretty
town.
risky for a ghost
Well,
town.
the old part of the town is still there.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
It's kind of neat. And then somebody, I don't know, some builder went in there and refixed some of those old stone buildings,
Mhm.
rebuilt them kind of. He kept the original character of the building completely, but he cleaned them up and fixed them, put new roofs on them. Man, they've been having parties and stuff up there, renting them out. It's just
I know there's
neat.
another Marysville I know about.
California.
Oh, and I know where it is. It's in Washington State, north of Seattle.
Yeah, there's a Marysville over there too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyhow, now I'm going to have to get Eva to the.
That I don't know,
doctor
John,
tomorrow.
because I've never pursued the dredging permits here. I'm sure it's probably as much of a pain as anything else. So
I don't know if he knows why they buried the carts.
I have no idea. All I know is I heard rumors they pushed them all off the end of the track and they buried them. Yeah. And whether they're still under that pile, or I'm assuming they probably are if that's what they did.
Probably it's some old guy there, and he's sitting there and he's spreading the rumor. He's waiting to see somebody start digging.
Got another one. Shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know those guys down here at not Whitehall, south of there. there's a mine, kind of a mine museum. A guy who collects mine stuff, but he also supplied like Disneyland and a lot of them with all the old cars and all the old mining equipment. Well, they used to go around to all these mines around here and grab everything that they could get. Anything that could come out of that mine, they would salvage it. And a lot of the stuff out of Butte, he salvaged a lot of stuff out of Butte.
Yeah. By the way, I found out something today. There's somebody I know that gets a lot of shipments, and there was a box and it says delicate scientific instrument on it, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, nah, it's BS. It just means fragile. But it works a lot better than saying fragile. Makes sense. Yeah, they're just burying them so that after the war they could come back.
That's always a possibility.
Yeah, because if they didn't bury them, they'd be hauled off for the steel.
I've opened 2 mines that's what they did. Evidently, is they pulled all the track on the outside of the portals and everything, put them inside, and those mines had to have been collapsed about 1940 or 41 when that went into effect, because all the track for outside the mine and everything was just inside the portal, and they caved the front of the portal. They left everything intact inside the mine.
Makes sense. Yep.
So I assume was their intention, was to come back after the war and open the hole up again and go back at it.
Yep. Actually, before the wartime, gold was illegal to possess.
Yeah.
It's just they shut down the mines for the war effort.
Yeah, the mines could operate, but you had to sell all your gold into the U.S. Treasury.
Yep.
And they, literally sent treasury agents out. And not that you couldn't trade gold at a store or something, but it immediately went into the banking system.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to get to sleep here soon. I got to drive even to Missoula. So, she'd probably appreciate it if I didn't fall asleep on the way.
Yeah, probably.
It is comforting to know that if anything goes wrong, we can just sit there until rescue arrives. Kalispell, that's up there by Glacier, right?
Yeah, it's about 3 hours north of here.
Yeah.
Between here and there was quite a bit of mining. Then when you get to the other side of Kalispell, going farther up to the northwest, there was a lot of mining. There's actually a couple of big mines up in there that are recently being opened up again and working on them.
That is incorrect, Paul. It was Roosevelt that made the possession of gold bullion illegal, and most gold coins. Only numismatics were spared. Nixon allowed gold to float against the international standard, and I think it was shortly after Nixon when they actually allowed private possession of gold.
Right at that point when they put it on the free market.
Yeah,
right,
it might have
71.
been yeah. But no, Nixon was the one who freed up gold, and Roosevelt was the one who made it illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the post offices, the banks, and the U.S. Treasury Department in a lot of cases had their own offices as well.
Yeah. Oh, what could possibly go wrong? I bet you that was a job a lot of people wanted.
Well,
be the gold buyer.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I only bought 100 ounces of gold. What do you mean 150? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
yeah. You remember when they used to have the old food stamps? They're actually things. You know that you could go out there and buy them for 50 cents on the dollar cash? Because people who get food stamps, they didn't want the food, they wanted money to buy drugs.
Right.
And so the standard price was 50 cents face value for food stamps.
Yeah. There was
Yep.
a lot of scams around that too.
Oh yeah. A lot of people did that one.
Yeah.
Food, 50% off. Thank you, government. Drugs, free. Thank you, government. Now they put it on cards and you can't cheat like that, bastards.
Yeah, but they got them. They don't hardly limit what they can spend it on.
Yeah, there's not a
Yeah.
whole lot of that limitations anymore either. Yeah. Now they'd have to find mine, John. Thank you, Lincoln.
Yeah, thanks, Lincoln.
Uh,
Yeah, we're probably got to call it a night here, guys.
Yeah,
Unless somebody has a good question.
Any questions or anything at this point? Anybody? And just to make it easy for what's his name to find again, I'll go through that formula for the zinc precipitate. 3 grams of precipitate, 10 grams of sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate rather, not bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, which is either called soda ash or washing soda or the common names. Borax glass, 5 grams. Litharge, which is lead oxide, 70 grams. Some flour, but it doesn't give me by the gram. It says the right amount of flour for a 30-gram button, which I'm sure is somewhere in the book, and 10 grams of silica. And when it says borax glass, I'm not sure if he means actual borax or whether he means more like Pyrex, which is borax glass nowadays. I mean, this is written, 100 years ago.
Well, the borax turns to glass when it's heated.
Yeah, but borax glass is Pyrex,
Yeah. Right.
borosilicate. So I presume he means borax. Probably anhydrous borax would be my guess, but I'd have to look through there. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see.
Fluffy.
I know it's. There's sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate.
No, Lincoln,
borax.
they'll get the lead first. They want to play with the gold.
Okay. Borax glass is made by fusing borax to drive off its water crystallization and then cooling and crushing it. So it's anhydrous borax.
Exactly. That's what Chris
Borax
said.
glass means anhydrous borax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it out, Chris. You don't have to show how dumb I am. Okay, I'm better now.
Making anhydrous borax was fun. It got all puffy.
That was weird. Well, that's not anhydrous, little one. It's kind of low hydrous, but yeah, that was kind of funny.
I wonder if it would have gotten puffier if we could have dried it out more.
If you fuse it, it turns to borax glass. Yeah, I don't think we could have done it in the
Can we
oven.
do it in the new kiln?
Of course we can.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay. Any other questions, anybody? Crush up your wife's good Pyrex. That could be painful. Not for her.
That stuff doesn't smash worth of shit.
Yep. Oh,
All right, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. And
yep.
we'll see you all next week.
And I will try and actually have some beads to show you. Building that fume hood has been difficult. The weather has not been conducive. It's awfully hard to work at the ranch when it's below zero. All righty. Well, we're going to call it a night. And thank you, everybody. And thanks for all the help and the ideas and everything else. So happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. I don't think Nixon killed himself. Okay.